So I'll call to order the Plan Commission meeting of Monday, September 21st, 2020. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. No need to stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America
and to the republic
for which it
which
stands,
stands one nation,
under
God,
indivisible,
indivisible, liberty,
liberty,
and
justice
justice
for all.
All right. Wayne, would you please take roll?
Mr. Papa?
Aye. Here, present.
Mr. Franz?
Present.
Ms. Walker?
present,
Mrs. Grabanowski?
Present.
Mr. Lewis?
Present.
Mr. Fedor?
Present.
Mr. Jones?
Present.
So we have a quorum with all 7 members. A simple majority will decide all matters tonight. In your packet, and there was a late addition tonight or this afternoon. Those were the January 21st meeting, January 21st Plan Commission meeting minutes or memo. If you've had a chance to review that, we can, make any comments, changes, and approve those. Or if you haven't had a chance to review them, we can take that matter up again next month. The April 20th minute or August 17th minutes were also in the packet. However, they were pretty choppy because the audio was not the best. Sure. And Dan Taylor said he would take an effort of kind of filling out those, he took some notes, so he'll fill out the comments or statements that are on those minutes. So with those, I'd recommend that we would wait until next month. The January minutes, I'll, listen to what you guys have to say on that one.
That sounds good. Let's wait until they get filled out.
All right, and then we may also have the elusive April 20th minutes too at that time. So, all right, we'll continue on. At this point in time, I guess, we'll deal with any continuance requests that there may be at this point in time. Wayne, are you aware of any, or the audience, somebody in the audience has any comments on that?
Mr. Franz, I am aware of a continuance request that came in from Mr. Wapshall related to petition 2020-37-DP Heritage Trail Park Phase 2.
Okay. And do you know the reason for the continuance request?
I do not have the document in front of me, but it did speak to notice concerns, filing concerns. If Mr. Wapshall's in the audience, we can look to promote him if you would like.
If you're in the audience, please raise your hand to be recognized. All right, well, I'll speak to this one. It appears that, he did have effective notice because he's commented on this matter, is my understanding, with several letters to the planning department. In addition, Dan, if you can confirm this, but the notice is really something that's put in place for the planning department so they have appropriate time to respond. Is that correct?
The filing date is of staff concern, not the notice.
Okay, all right, filing date. So with that, I'm not inclined to, really push this thing forward on a continuance. Would this take a vote to deny the continuance, or do we just move on, Dan? Or first off, is there any comments from the rest of the commissioners? So Dan, would this take a vote to deny the continuance, or would we just move forward?
I would have a vote to deny the request if that's the way you're inclined to do it, or to
Okay.
grant.
All right, so is there, can somebody make a motion one way or the other on the continuance request?
I move that we deny the request for continuance on 2020-37 DP, the Heritage Trail Park Phase 2.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor signify by aye. Aye.
Aye.
By nay, opposed by nay. Okay, motion carries 7-0, so we will take that matter up. Are there any other continuance requests to be made at this time? All right, I'm not seeing any requests from the audience, so we'll move on to continued business from last month.
Mr. Franz,
Yes.
I would draw your attention to Plan Commission routinely asks attendees in the audience who, if they would like to be acknowledged for the record, to
Okay,
please
that's right.
read their name into the record. We typically do that at the beginning or very early stages of the meeting. If any party would like their name read into the record, please raise your hand. I see the names Marty Thompson, Courtney Ward, Sally Zalonis, Thomas Esra, Mark Emerson, Josh Kelly, Josh Leppert, Andreas Carice, first name of Allison, no last name offered, Greg Yarrington, Monte Horst, Molly Kitchell, Ann Glober, that's the best I have on the screen, Jake Bradley, Brian Miller 2, Roger Burris, Mark Wood, Lowell D. Snow, Apple, the only word on the screen, Chloe Kelly, Katie Culp, Eliana Armstrong, parentheses, she/her, close parentheses, Mandy Miller, Sharon McKay McClellan, Lisa Seppes, Matt Ward, Mary Snow, Bill Schmidt, Rebecca Kaufman, Mary Anthony, all one word, Christy, single word only, Noreen, single word only, Mindy Murdoch, D, letter D, painter, Ryan Kitchell, John Becker, CCHA, Sue Wood, Mike Schaefer, Brittany Hetrick, REA, just the initials, Josh Ashley. I believe that concludes the list.
All right. With
There are
that,
two
we'll
in the
move-
chat, Wayne.
Ashley Judd. Allison is Allison Horst. Thank you for the clarification. Ms. Horst?
All right, thank you. All right, so we'll on to the continued matter of docket number 2020-24Z, Russell Oaks 8901 and 9085 East Oak Street, petition for zone map change to rezone 31.671 plus or minus acres from the rural R1 residential zoning district to the rural R2 residential zoning district. Is the petitioner present? Please raise your hand to be recognized.
I see add a couple names to your list. Shang Demetos and S. Clausen raises their hand, but I did see Mr. Andreoli. Roger, if you would promote him, that would be ideal. Thank you.
I'm in the process of doing that for Mr. Andreoli.
And Mr. Andreoli, you are on mute at this point in time.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I don't know why I can't see you, but I'm going to try to hit this. And yes, for the record, my name is Mike Andreoli, 1393 West Oak Street. I represent Kendallwood Realty,
we were here at your August meeting, and that public meeting was continued to tonight. Participating, I hope, electronically tonight is Jim Knighton, who is one of the principals of Kendallwood Realty, Matt Brown from A&F Engineering, and Shannon Killian from GAI Engineers. Since the last meeting, we had an opportunity to talk with several residents after the meeting itself, and one of the residents was Dr. Glover, who we talked to, and then she ended up scheduling a meeting to come into the office. She has written correspondence to you, and I've responded to that. Her primary concerns was she wanted us to commit at this stage to do a 50-foot buffer yard across our property in the tree line, and there's about 50 foot of trees along there, and you have an updated aerial and site plan that essentially shows the neighbors to our immediate west. And in addition, she wanted detailed engineering drawings with regard to how we were going to handle the drainage. We talked with our engineers and looked at some of the topography issues out there, wrote Dr. Glover a letter and advised her that we cannot at this point commit to all 50 feet being maintained in buffer yard, undisturbed buffer yard. There's some topography issues in the back by her property, and that would not allow us to do that until we're farther into the process. We confirmed with her that there was a 50-foot buffer line of trees and that we would do all we could to preserve as many trees as we could. And we committed to her that we would not ask for any variances from our buffer yard requirements whatsoever. But that's as far as we could take it at this point. As far as the engineering, we simply do not have enough detail with regard to the engineering and the drainage, but we did comment to her that we would comply with the stormwater management ordinance. We had good outlets for extension, and there should be no legitimate reason why we can't comply and have this being a well-drained and in compliance development. Since that time, we've also reached out to Mike Schaefer. He has submitted a school study based upon information we submitted to him, and you should have that in your packets. And he finds marginally a net positive from this particular development itself. Also, since the last time we were here, we prepared written commitments, and they should be part of your packet. Most recently, Ken Esra's attorney, Jeff Jacob, reached out to me. Mr. Esra and his wife live immediately east to this particular project in the subdivision immediately to the east of it. And his concern was being able to establish a line of communication so that we could meet well before the any development plan meeting with regard to our drainage and have that in hand and discuss this. We made the same commitment to Dr. Glover, by the way, that we, before any meeting, the public meeting, when we had all of our engineering details, we'd be happy to sit down with her before that. It's also important to note as to Dr. Glover's property, as an aside, that her house is some 400 feet from our property line, and there's a heavy tree line, as you'll see from the aerial and site plan that we prepared and submitted last week to Janice. As far as the commitment was concerned, Jeff Jacob had some suggested comments. Originally wanted the R1 to revert from an R2 back to R1 in the event our site plan, master plan did not receive development planning approval. I know that in my past dealings with Mr. Clutter and his firm, they have some concerns with regard to reversionary language in rezoning matters. So Jeff had prepared, and I made Jeff aware that he had prepared some additional language that we had adopted in rhetorical paragraph 3 of the commitments that essentially solves the problem so that in the event that we cannot get approval of our master plan and development plan and planning approval with the plan commission and the town, that we would essentially, regardless of the zoning classification, adhere to all of the zoning standards and requirements set in the rural R1 district. So that makes it basically a worry-free rezone as to 31 acres, because even if we can't get our master plan approved, essentially we still can't put any more than 31 homes on it with all the requirements in the original R1 classification. So that language, I hope Jeff is here and he would confirm that the language that I prepared was fine. The only other thing I want to mention is in the staff report. I think it covers it extremely well in terms of the positives. But one of the things that I would, again, caution you, and hopefully you would agree, that we retain the issue of whether or not we get a waiver for our right-of-way requirements up to 70 feet on the east part of our development into the lake for further plan commission review, that we don't make that part of a commitment as far as the rezone is concerned, because the town council has no ability to give us a waiver of that. Only this body, the plan commission, does. And so we think it should stick with you. You'll hear about that again. But we simply put, we cannot fill in if the town is desirous of having a 70-foot right of way and want us to fill that in. That would be too expensive a process for 150 homes on this site. Just simply can't be done. And so we would think that a waiver might be appropriate in front of this body. We're not losing anything because we would have the ability to grant any waivers as it relates to development plan or plat. So other than that, I'll be happy to answer any questions or answer any comments from the general public. One additional small point. We did reach out to Katie Culp and had reached out at the evening of the meeting with Mr. Anderson that we'd be happy to go ahead and attend the meeting or foster a meeting in our office where people could come in and ask any questions and further pick and probe and ask us what we had planned for the site. We were never taken up on that particular request. So while I know that you instructed us to try to get together, and I take those instructions very seriously, we reached out and we were not able to have any meetings or conversations with regard to that. The benefits to the people east of this particular development is that in the currently existing R2 zoning that is not part of this rezoning application, that would be limited to the particular development that we have, and it would include no two-family dwellings whatsoever. So there's a lot of positives to take from this rezoning. It's limited to 150 homes, no R2 zoning if we're approved. And in essence, we've got what we believe is an overall wonderful site plan for this. A couple other questions that had been raised had to do with the traffic flow and the emergency entrance. Please note that we've had no pushback from either police or fire or engineers with regard to our access or emergency access. Right now, there exist accel and decel lanes that was purchased by the state a number of years ago from the Dick family, and those improvements have been made because our primary entrance is right across the street from the church. Conversely, they have accel and decel lanes on their side as well. So rarely have we found a particular site that already has passing blisters in existence and that come before the actual application process. So I'll stop my presentation now and hopefully have some time to answer any questions or rebuttal that might be involved. Thank you. Hello?
Sorry, I'm just unmuted. Sorry about that. Thanks, Mr. Andreoli. At this time, any members of the public who would like to speak, please raise your hand to be recognized. Should we, Dan, do you think we need to suspend rules just in the event that this thing runs longer than like the 10, 15 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to suspend rules relative to the time limitations placed on public comment in our procedures.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay.
I am.
Motion carries. So, all right. At this point, please raise your hand to be recognized, and you'll be given the opportunity to speak.
Mr. Franz, right now we have 5 hands raised.
All right.
The first I will promote is Matt Ward.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name's Matt Ward. I'm at 6295 Boone Ridge. I'm right across the street from the proposed development site. I'm new to the area, but I guess, you know, my question is I don't know the history of it. I know you guys have tried to run this place for a while. Across the street, you know, I see a lot of woods. I know there's like a creek there, and I know this feeds in, I believe it feeds into the watershed. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I'm really wondering, like, 2 things. One, what's going to be done? What's the environmental impact of this development site being so close to that creek as it is right now in the plans that I see, at least in front of me? And 2, what will be done to minimize disruption to other homes in the area, especially us who are like right across the street from where this proposed development site is?
Okay. What we'll do is we'll let everybody speak, and then we'll have Mr. Andreoli respond.
Thank you.
All right.
I will now be promoting Katie Culp.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. Well, thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to speak. Thank you also for being public servants and volunteers. I know how long these evenings can go, and appreciate the opportunity that you're providing the public to make comment on this important potential development. I'd also like to give kudos to Wayne and to Janice and other staff members who've been supremely helpful in educating not only myself, but I know many of my neighbors in better understanding some of the rules and procedures here. And last but not least, I would like to, I want to echo something that Mr. Andreoli said, which is that he has been very courteous and helpful and eager to meet with us. And part of the reason that we didn't take him up on his offer is I think a lot of the information that we still have questions about are some items that are sometimes handled during the development plan part of this process. And part of my comments here, and I'll do my best to be brief, will speak to that. And I'd like to encourage Plan Commission members tonight to think about the level of scrutiny that's required with this type of a project, and what level of diligence is appropriate even at this early juncture. I do want to start by saying I live at 2050 Mulsane Drive in the Thornhill subdivision, and I've spent the last 20 years of my career in economic development. So I can't say with any more sincerity that I am not not in my backyard NIMBY type of person. I appreciate development, and the preliminary information that I've learned about this project, it does not terrify me by any stretch of the imagination. I'll tell you, I was surprised to learn that the ground behind our property in Thornhill is already zoned R2. That was a surprise to me, but I'm sure there's a rich story in the history of Zionsville that can explain that one. Because certainly as my kids play in the backyard, they could hit a golf ball and not hit a house for what seems like a really long stretch of ground. But I know part of your job as the APC is to pay reasonable regard to a couple different things, one of which is the comp plan. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but obviously by its very nature, a request for rezone is asking for something that would be inconsistent with the comp plan that we currently have. I understand that there have been a lot of recent discussions specific to the development, that Windhaven project that came before you a couple weeks or months ago, where there's been some policy discussion about how the town wants to react to requests for rezones. So I would encourage this group, to the extent that any rationale was used on that development, that perhaps it'd be consistent to apply that same logic to this petition. So the comp plan piece is something to be considered, and like I said, consistency with recent decisions I think is really important. The next piece, I know you're well aware, is current conditions and character are something that you're supposed to pay attention to. And again, it's a weird patch of R2, but it is what it is. And certainly, if the project stayed to the scope that it is being described at this early juncture, and once general contractors and the caliber of the types of contractors or developers who'd be working on this are identified and more architectural details are available. And again, I know this happens in the development plan process, but some of those details could make this very appealing. I'm glad to hear that a school impact report was finally done. I think that's really important, and that it's, even if it's marginal, I'm glad to hear that it's positive. But that is kind of a segue into the next bucket of concerns, which is one of your other tasks, is responsible development and growth. And I know there have been some traffic studies, they're a little bit dated, and certainly right now in the middle of a pandemic, it would be a difficult time to have a new and accurate traffic study that really captures what's going on 334. But it is, you know, traffic, wetlands, drainage, the straining of utilities, and concerns about fire protection are all areas that give me some angst and some heartburn about this project. And I know that as the project proceeds, that again, that a lot of this happens in the development plan. And I am very sympathetic to the petitioner who, you know, if they don't get a positive rezone, to have to incur costs to provide this diligence at an early juncture without knowing that the project will happen. It's very expensive, it's time consuming, and I don't think anybody, I'm guessing even you on the commission, really enjoy that part of the process. But my concern is that as these issues about traffic and drainage, and wetlands, and the straining of utilities and our overall capacity, you know, as these things become more flushed out, the only way a developer maintains the same ROI is to create more density in the project. And so because of these reasons, and I know many of my neighbors and friends have other points they want to hit tonight, I would encourage the APC to really consider and to support the idea that it would be reasonable for you to request, to utilize a higher degree of scrutiny and to request more diligence on this that would speak to some of the concerns of neighbors and nearby residents. And I think if there was a willingness to do that, I, for one, would be the first to volunteer to arrange some sort of community meeting where we could social distance and be safe about it, but have some discussion about what the concerns were and see if they could do kind of a development plan like. And I think because of the unique nature of where we're talking about, and if you look at adjacent ground nearby and what the rural nature of most of the adjacent parcels are, I think there's a strong case to be made for that. So I thank you for your time and attention, and again, for your public service.
All right, thank you very much. Roger?
Okay, we'll promote Kent Esra, and following Mr. Esra will be Marty Thompson, just so that Marty is aware.
All right.
Mute myself, hold on. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, hi. My name's Kent Esra, and my wife Liz and I live at 654 Spring Hills Drive in Zionsville. And so we're just to the east of the proposed, the proposal that Mr. Andreoli has. Generally speaking, Liz and I are in favor of projects like this. And we wanted to thank Mr. Andreoli for letting us know about the drainage, the information that we have up to this point. And once this reaches the plating stage, hopefully we can go over more of the discussion about drainage concerns. I spoke at the last meeting, and I believe Mr. Papa kind of picked up on my question, which was if this project doesn't move forward, having the R1 parcel go to R2, we would like to see that it revert back to R1. And I know that there are some possible concerns or issues as far as how the zoning works in that sense. That's generally where I stand right now. If this, we would be for the proposal. Obviously, it's got to go through a lot of more stages. We need, some concern about all of the other aspects of this. I think that my lawyer is Jeff Jacob, and he has proposed a couple of different options as far as zoning is concerned. And again, my question would be, can we revert back to the R1 on this particular parcel if this project doesn't move forward? And again, we do have concerns about the drainage, but I think that we can work those out, hopefully, if this project moves forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Roger?
I will now promote Marty Thompson, and N. Glober will be the next speaker. Marty, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, sorry about that. I had to enter my Zoom password again for some strange reason. Well, anyway, thanks for pulling this together this evening. I appreciate it. So my question is...
can I get your address first, please?
Oh, sure. It's 6550 South, 850 East. So I am across the street from the Enclave, and other neighbors include Shannon Springs.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So really, I think my concern is a bit of an ancillary concern, notwithstanding some of the issues that others have mentioned already. But as probably all of you or most of you know, a big part of this area is still not connected to Zionsville municipal utilities, namely sewer lines and water, which includes us. And I just heard from Barry Cook a few days ago that the effort to actually extend a sewer line to my area has been stalled because directly across from Russell Lake, they found that the Vector and gas lines were crisscrossing, and basically they couldn't proceed with the sewer line until they devoted a lot more time to that issue. So really my concern is that as this or any similar project moves forward, I would like to see the town really and concurrently put a renewed emphasis on, getting those utilities out to folks like me and others. As you're focusing on new development, please do put some emphasis on the folks that already live here. I've been here 20 years, in fact, or 18 years, wow. And, you know, we've seen multiple developments, the Enclave as an example. During that planning and construction, it could have easily been done to accommodate the few houses around that development to bring those utilities to us, but it didn't happen. Likewise, when Shannon Springs was granted access, that was an opportunity to bring a few of the other homes and neighbors in this area into the fold, and that did not happen. So, you know, for me and a lot of other people, it really looks as if the emphasis has been on new development at the expense of existing homes and existing neighbors and taxpayers. So that's my main concern, is that I think you all have basically forgotten a lot of the folks around here, and you need to fix that. And I'd like to see that commitment in some way dovetailed with the commitment to develop this new property. Personally, I'm surprised no one bought it 10 years ago and started developing, because it's a beautiful area, and we love this area. But that's my main concern and the main issue I wanted to bring up. Certainly Barry could fill you in on some of the details that he passed on to me. We were disappointed, to say the least, but I think working together we can, you know, we can solve this, and we can hopefully make progress concurrently as this potential development and others move forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Roger?
We still have 5 hands raised. I will promote N. Glober, and Mark Enerson is on deck.
Good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
My name is Nancy Glober. I'm the Dr. Glober to whom Mr. Andreoli referred to the first few minutes of his talk. I live at 672 West Russell Lake Drive. I sent you all a letter, which I'm hoping you got, and CC'd Mr. Andreoli, sort of outlining my concerns in paper, just to give you a general sense. My issue with the rezoning is that if we move this from an R1 to an R2 classification, it'll lead to inevitably worse erosion and worse runoff. Overall, I'm generally impressed with the proposed development, but I do think that erosion and runoff will have big impacts to me, and that impact will be more significant if we reclassify this from R1 to R2. Notably, that southwest corner of the property, where the R1 to R2 change would have the most dramatic impact, is an elevation higher than mine. It's about 50 feet deep with these trees that Mr. Andreoli referenced. The importance of those trees is that they are in fact at a higher elevation than mine. So yeah, my property has another 200 feet of trees, but if he takes out those 50 feet of really tall old trees and their root systems, the erosion will be worse. With regards to exactly how many trees he takes out or leaves in, my concern is that if we make those quarter-acre lots, a quarter-acre lot is about 104 feet by 104 feet squared. If we take out, I'm assuming they're going to have to take out almost all of those 50 feet just to make room for a house on those lots. If those trees do come out, I think that's fine. I think it's well within their rights. But I would like some sort of proposal or some broad sketch of how they're going to deal with the worsening erosion and runoff that will happen because of that. So I'm not actually asking for a detailed plan at this point, but I would like some general idea. They have a sketch of a detention facility laid out for water collection. The water have to get land as it currently stands to get to that detention facility. So a big issue here.
You're freezing up some. Nancy, had you wrapped up your comments? You're muted now.
This is Nancy Glover. Did you all hear all of that, or I'm not sure when I got cut off?
Probably about the last maybe minute was pretty sketchy.
Okay, so in essence, I think it's well within their rights to take down those trees, but I think it would be great to have some alternative, just sort of general sketch of what their runoff plan is. I'm not asking for details, but their plan right now involves significant sort of adverse effect to my property. The water is going to run through my property to get to the detention facility that they have sketched out in their map. And they haven't been able to come up with any sort of general idea of how they would deal with that. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Roger?
I will promote Mark Anderson, and Christy Chappell will be next.
Hello, this is Mark. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to speak, and I appreciate all your service as a commission. I had an opportunity last month to talk and share with you a petition that was started in our neighborhood. I live in the Thornhill neighborhood at 1990 Mulsane Drive. And I did have an opportunity this morning to send Janice an update on that petition that is opposing this rezoning and development, and we have a total of 205 names as of this morning. One of the biggest concerns is the density and what that does to our community, what that does to Oak Street, what that does to safety aspects, and the impact that this has on so many different neighborhoods that surround this development. And so I'd like for the commission to really take this into consideration and the high density that we're discussing. My understanding is this is a rezoning decision with the increase of maybe moving it from R1 to R2 that just gives the opportunity for more higher density, larger numbers of homes in this site. And so we, again, at this phase are opposing this type of development with that number of homes and the impact that that would have on our surrounding neighborhoods. I did have one question as I was reading the documents this evening, that if you could help address, as I saw the impact analysis and the potential income coming from property taxes. And in that it states that there's like 105 homes that are worth 700,000 and another 45 homes that are in the neighborhood of 400,000 or 500,000 in that neighborhood. And I was wondering if that is something, as I hear them describe the development as kind of being, what's the correct term? I believe it's substantial compliance. If that is something that is taken into account as they are developing this, and again, it's a little hard for me to imagine that the size of some of these lots I'm seeing and the property values that I'm seeing assessed, at least in that analysis. So if there's an opportunity to address that, I'd love to hear some more details on that. Thank you for the time.
All right, thank you. Roger?
We still have 4 hands raised. I will promote Christy Chappell and then Eliana Armstrong.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Christy Chappell, and I live at 1558 Corniche Drive, also in Thornhill. We have lived here now for 15 years and love Zionsville and realize that development will be a necessary part of our community, as everyone considering Zionsville also finds the charm in it. I would, before the board is looking to make a decision about the zoning, I would just caution them to like look at the aerial view. One of the things that we love about our neighborhood in Thornhill is I just would like to point out that we have 200 lots in Thornhill. And when you're taking the aerial view of the amount of land you're looking to develop, and then when I first heard about it and it was fewer than 50 homes, I wasn't that upset. I was concerned about the environmental impact, but more than anything, just as a property owner and liking to look around the area at what other homes are available, I can't imagine the property values being discussed for such a land when you're cramming, and I am going to use the word cramming, 150 lots into that property, considering that an adjacent neighborhood has 200 homes on it. And actually that's just 200 lots. That doesn't mean there's 200 homes in our neighborhood. Some still have double lots. So just the environmental impact and obviously infrastructure and traffic. When you try to leave our neighborhood at 5 o'clock, not even 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock until 7 o'clock, you might as well not. We do not ever try to take a turn headed west. It's virtually impossible. It's very unsafe. We have taught him to take Ford Road and take the long way there. It's kind of a sad statement that you can't even leave our property at that time of day. And by adding 150 homes, I understand that not all 150 people living in those homes will be on the road at the same time, but the traffic impact of increasing the amount of homes in that property are of high concern to the residents in our neighborhood. And not to mention that the neighborhood adjacent to us in Spring Hill, they very much enjoy a very wooded lot that will be diminished by the amount of homes that you're planning to put into this neighborhood. And those are my major concerns.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Roger.
I will promote Eliana Armstrong, and Monty Horst will be next.
Good evening. Can you hear me? This is Eliana.
Yes, we can.
Hi, I'm Eliana Armstrong, and I live at 650 Spring Hills Drive. I actually submitted my concerns in writing this afternoon, and if the Plan Commission received that letter, I'd be happy to just receive confirmation from you. I'm not sure if you want me to read it as it is a whole page.
It was sent out in materials. Is that correct, Janice?
That's correct, sir.
Yep.
Okay.
So we did receive it.
I'm happy to read it if you'd like me to, if anyone has any questions about it, or I can just, I'm happy that you
there's a lot of materials. If you want to kind of hit the highlights, why don't you go ahead and do that?
Sure. So we initially raised an objection to the planned rezoning at the last meeting, and having had the opportunity to review the response from the developer, we basically still have concerns and want to raise further objection. So at the last meeting, it was pretty clear that the master plan on which this rezoning is based has some pretty serious defects, which include failure to remedy a water body encroachment on the road easement as stipulated by the Plan Commission staff, failure to revise the circuitous main access road and defective emergency access as identified by the Plan Commission chair, failure to address the impacts of additional traffic on adjacent properties, including safe access for churchgoers, failure to consistently apply its own design principles, including placing highest density lots on steep terrain, failure to provide adequate drainage and flood protection, including increased flows into Irishman's Run Creek, and failure to address concerns of adjacent home and landholders about offsite impacts, including nuisance, noise, erosion, and impairment of amenities. The the recently provided statement of commitment from the developer stipulates that in the event the owner cannot or does not secure platting and development plan approval for the master plan as currently submitted, the owner commits to respect development limits consistent with the current R1 zoning of the subject land and the current R2 zoning of the adjacent land as if rezoning itself had not been approved. However, in the fine print on page 3, we learn that any controversy arising under or in relation to these commitments shall be litigated exclusively in the applicable state courts of Indiana. In other words, future action by the Zionsville Council to make platting and development approval contingent on modifications to the current master plan in order to remedy these defects already on the record, or any additional defects as may come to light, will expose council to otherwise unnecessary and possibly expensive and prolonged litigation. So it begs the question, why would the Plan Commission even consider consenting to future litigation over modifications to a master plan already known to be defective in so many ways? That's the core of what I had to say. Thank you for your time and attention.
All right, thank you. Roger?
We'll promote Monty Horst, and next will be Norman.
Hi, this is Monty Horst. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Monty Horst. I was at the meeting last month. I'm at 660 Spring Hills Drive in the Spring Hills neighborhood. The last time I spoke at length about the density of this project, and I think that's what we all have such issues with, is the density of this project. And I'll touch base on a couple things that tie into that. And one of them is the traffic study that's been brought up a couple times. And in looking at that traffic study, number one, it was conducted in 2018. And this area has grown immensely since 2018, not just in Zionsville, but in Whitestown, and the traffic that comes back and forth every single day. The traffic study, what I noticed is it focuses on the number of cars. It focuses on the infrastructure and the current roadways in place. And I noted that the recommendations from the firm was that really nothing needed to be done. And Mr. Andreoli mentioned it as well, because there was already, I think, what is called a blister lane on the right, a passing lane on the right. But what it doesn't take into account is the existing conditions and challenges that all the people that live in these neighborhoods around this development. And I want to point out again that this development is not like other developments that have gone into Zionsville. And we are not, as a group, we're not trying to keep people out of Zionsville. We're just trying to keep our neighborhood looking similar to what it currently looks like and address some of the traffic issues, challenges that we face. And if you live in Boone Ridge, if you live in Thornhill, if you live in Spring Hills, if you live in Lakeview and Russell Lake, it can be virtually impossible to get out of your neighborhood at certain times of the day right now as it is. I can't tell you the number of people, and maybe somebody that speaks later will mention this, but the number of people in Thornhill, in Spring Hills, and in Russell Lake in particular, when they're trying to go west, that turn right, and then they drive towards the village, and then they turn around in St. Al's Catholic Church and go back to the west because they cannot get out of their neighborhoods to go west when they need to. That's number one, that's not addressed in anything that I've seen here. Just saying that, okay, we have this right lane blister is not going to address the issues that we have from a traffic standpoint. I would even say, I'm a runner as well. I run from Spring Hills, and if you see the aerial map, you can do the little loop. I run out of my street, Spring Hills, onto Oak Street, and I go into the Lakeview, and I do the little horseshoe loop, and then I go across the street into Russell Lake, and I do that loop, and then I come back. I have to cross the street 4 times to do that. There are many times when I sit there as a runner and I can't even get across the street. I have to sit there and jog in place, waiting for an opportunity to safely get from one side of 334 to the other. And the second thing that I would mention is that I understand the challenges that the planning committee has in terms of looking at all these proposals and trying to balance growth with what's right for the community and what's right for the town of Zionsville to grow in the best manner. And I understand that what the current zoning allows and what the revised zoning would allow. And my understanding, though, is that it's not just, the decision is not just about deciding what is allowed under the different zoning distinctions, but to make sure that the zoning that goes into place is consistent and fits within the area. Katie used earlier, she used the golf club analogy that, you know, she could hit a golf ball and you might not find something that looks similar to what this potentially would look like based on the current planning. I would say that, you know, my sons have drones and they like to fly their drones, and I could stand at any point in this property and fly a zone in any direction and probably max its range and not view anything that looks like what this development looks like in terms of the density of the homes with specific regard to the 49 townhomes that are planned to go right there at the very front of the property. And I would also add to Katie's point that I'm happy to meet and sit down and talk through some of these things. But quite honestly, my first exposure to the possibility of having those meetings was immediately following the meeting that we had in August, when I believe it was Dr. Glover, who was having a conversation with another resident, and they were specifically asking questions about what the tree canopy and whether those trees would be maintained or whether they would be cut down. And the response from Mr. Knighton, who was standing there, was basically, it's all in the report. And then the question was asked again, and basically it was the same thing. And, you know, finally someone said, well, we won't cut any trees down that are absolutely necessary. So I guess my point there is that along with that, there's been the threat thrown out that, well, if we don't move forward with this plan that's in place, then the builder has the ability to throw doubles on the property, almost like a threat, almost like either accept this now, accept what we have here, or it could be worse. So when those are the kind of statements that are made, it doesn't really give much of a level of comfort to say, yeah, it would be helpful for me to sit down and speak with these individuals and talk about, you know, how can we work together to put something that's reasonable in. So maybe that was the reason that a couple of us decided that, you know, at this point, not to sit down with Mr. Andreoli, because it almost felt like a scare tactic, quite frankly. So I would just ask the planning commissioners to take a look at this in the spirit of what does this area look like. I'll point out again, I live in Spring Hills. It's a property of about between 1/4 and 1/3 the size of this property, and does not have a large body of water on it. I would also point out, and we have 24 homes, and we immediately border this property, and now we want to put 150 in a property that's about, you know, like I said, about 3 times the size of that. So I would encourage the planning committee to vote no on the rezoning. Thank you, respectfully.
All right, thank you. Roger?
We'll promote Norman.
Norman, you're on mute. Oh, presentation. All right.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm Norman Alexander. I live at 185 North Maxwell Court in Colony Woods. I've been a resident of Zionsville for 36 years. I moved here when this was basically a village. And I've seen the zoning commission zone judiciously, but leaning more and more all the time to higher and higher density type of projects. Mainly because they get pushed by the developer, because otherwise he won't make any money. That shouldn't be the decision that you folks make. You look at this project, and I'm new to this project. I've just recently heard about it and kind of looked at the information, but I've listened to what the people said tonight, and my original plan was just to listen tonight. But I've heard what all the people said and what the developer said. He said he's going to need waivers down the line. I don't see anything about schooling, what the impact is on schooling. You're looking at 300 to 450 kids addition. The traffic, believe me, I'm one who quite often has to get out of Zionsville to 65 to head to Indy at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. And that can be a 30-minute to 40-minute trip just to get to 65. High density housing, why? Zionsville has always been a very nice community. Fewer homes on the lots, higher priced homes that bring in higher priced people who spend more money in our community. I would think that this would be an easy decision for the planning commission to make. The one lady who laid out all the deficiencies in the plan, that alone should make it an easy decision for you folks to just say no. Go back to the drawing boards and start over if they want to develop this property. We know we have to develop property. That's going to happen. That's the nature of the fact that we got land here. And that's what I wanted to just say to the Planning Commission. And I do thank you for listening and for having this forum online. This is new. I think it is marvelous. It allows those of us in the community, I for one am not real mobile, so I don't go to planning commission meetings and so forth and so on. But this allows me to do that, and I will do more of it if you have it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Roger?
There are no more hands raised.
Okay. All right, at this time.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, just as I said that, a hand did go up. I apologize.
Okay, they just got in.
I will promote Brian Miller.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My name is Brian Miller. I live at 6807 Wellington Circle in Oldfields. I've been a resident of Zionsville for about 25 years. I've lived in, let's see, Cobblestone, Stonegate, and Manchester Square. And my neighbor to my left was Jim Knighton. I was on the board with Joe Zhang, so I'm familiar with the townhome approach. I lived in one. It was really nice at the time, but I moved to Oldfields to have more of the estate feel, rural environment, and I drive right by the west side of that proposed neighborhood every day. And we just moved in 6 months ago, and I would hate to think that we're going to have high density housing right to the right of us. I'm sure it will kill the property values of all the homes in Oldfields. So I'm not an expert on all the details, but This comes as a surprise.
All right. Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Roger?
The last hand we have raised is Josh Kelly.
All right.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Hey, thank you guys for, again, the service that you guys do. I would like to echo, as a resident of 634 Karen Drive, sorry, 634 Karen Drive, as Monty had said and as others have said, the traffic level is sometimes atrocious, even on a Saturday morning. So my big concern, especially as having a new driver and another one coming in a couple years, the ability to get out on 334 right now is very, very difficult. So I would look to that to I have some concerns with that as well. So again, I appreciate your guys' ability to have the town folk on the Zoom.
All right. Thank you very much. Roger?
There are no hands raised.
All right. With that, we'll close public comment. All right. Mr. Andreoli, if I'm going to give you the opportunity to kind of, I guess, respond to some of the comments that were made, if you're prepared to do so.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, sir. We'll try to take these in some order. We did have an opportunity to talk with Katie Culp, and as soon as she reached out to me, we sent her all the information that she was needing to understand a little bit more about the project, and I certainly appreciated that. Hopefully I look forward to working with her and members over there in Thornhill through the development plan and the planning process of this particular development. And we'll pledge to the board and pledge to her that before we start filing applications, to the extent we're successful with this rezone, that we will be happy to go ahead and meet with them ahead of time to let them know some of the more specifics. As you know, at the next stage, a lot more detail has to be put to it with regard to drainage and those types of things. Your stormwater management ordinance is draconian, and I say that respectfully because we have to meet it. And in this particular project, that shouldn't be any problem. We have a wonderful lake to retain. We have a fair amount of expense to have to go through at the development plan stage to update the overflow capacity. We've had meetings with the DNR, extensive meetings. So a lot of work has gone into this that predates this particular application as it relates to drainage. We have areas of detention, and we're going to have storm sewers. As I explained to Dr. Glover, there's going to be a lot of detail that will have to go into the drainage, and two things are for sure. One, we will not be, any water that comes onto us naturally by your stormwater management ordinance, we have to accommodate that water, we have to retain it, and we have to meter it out at a rate that is in conformance with your stormwater management ordinance. Second of all, we cannot cause water from this site to emanate off-site and cause water problems or difficulties for our surrounding neighbors. Those are the two major requirements that we have to meet, and we're fully prepared to meet those. And quite frankly, if we don't meet those, you're not going to approve this particular development from a development plan stage, nor will we get any staff support in that regard if we can't meet those requirements. So I think as far as Katie Culp's concerned, we look forward to meeting with her and providing a lot more detail that we can provide when we get farther along with regard to the project. As far as the sewers, and Mr. Thompson raised that concern, we think this development is going to be in a position to help that. Obviously, if these sewers are coming along 334 Oak Street, Mr. DeLong can talk perhaps about any delays, but the town has made a commitment to run those sewers out there. Obviously, to the extent that we connect on, that's going to be a revenue for the town with regard to help pay for those sewers. And so I agree with Mr. Thompson. It's probably long past due that we get sewers out to the west to serve those areas. As far as Shannon Springs was concerned, those sewers went through a force main with enclave into the town. The capacity of the town at the place where it actually hit the town at that point, those lines were not large enough to be able to accommodate gravity sewers, and there's no gravity sewer out there. It's a force main. And so the town was limited at that point, being able to who they could serve and who they couldn't serve. They're at capacity with that line now. So these sewer lines coming out to the west would be a very positive thing. As far as Mr. Anderson and others talking about this being a high density development, we simply have to disagree with that, and the numbers don't support that allegation. Currently, as the zoning currently sets, we can put 140 home sites or roughly thereabouts, and this proposal is for 150 homes. So the incremental 10 home sites is not creating a high density development, just to the contrary. The advantages of this is that the type of home that we're putting in is a quality home, will create tremendous value for the town, and will be laid out in a manner that will, we think, adhere to the best development practices and standards in terms of its location. As far as Dr. Glover's concerned with the trees, we want to keep the trees. We just can't commit to something that we don't know about at this point because we're not far enough along in the process. But I would suggest to you, when we come in with the development plan and plating, you'll expect me, to the extent that we can, to keep as many of those trees along the property line, and we still have a buffer yard that we have to maintain along that property line. That must be done, and we get points for that buffer yard if we can keep as many trees along that western boundary as we can. As far as the eastern boundary is concerned, you were shown an area at the last meeting that showed just how far away these houses are going to be from Thornhill, in particular, and a lot of the homes in Spring Hills. We appreciate Mr. Esra's comments supporting the project, and the language that we've come up with in the rhetorical paragraph 3, and I know Janice had received those revised commitments hopefully today, and if not, we worked that out with Mr. Jacob. I'm not adverse to a reversionary language if Mr. Taylor will permit it. In my past dealings with Mr. Clutter, his partner, he doesn't like that particular language, so that's why we based it on voluntary commitments as opposed to reversionary language. But the language does exactly that. If we can't get approved for our master plan and the development plan or rezoning, we have to adhere to the R1 standards. So it's not like there's a bait and switch. We get an R2 and then we can do something different with it. We have to substantially comply with this master plan, and if we can't and it's not approved, it still has to comply with the R1 standards voluntarily. That means only 31 homes. So there's no risk to Dr. Glover or others that somehow or another we're going to be in some manner densifying the R1 to R2, but with a different plan. We simply can't do that based upon these commitments. As far as Mr. Horst is concerned, and I think there were some other comments about that, using the word townhomes. And that was probably caused by some of my confusion. Not my confusion, my confusing language. I wasn't confused about it, but perhaps my language is confusing. These are cottage homes. These are standalone, individual platted home sites on the northeast part of the property as far as the development, those 45 homes. They are standalone, individually platted lots. There's no townhomes, and I can understand the concern, and I think Mr. Emerson and others may have raised it with Janice, and she asked me for a clarification, and I put that to you. Townhomes might mean they're attached or something like that. That's nothing to be further for the truth. We're committed to cottage homes, which are individually platted lots and individually platted homes, not connected in any way. So I'd be happy to answer any additional questions that you have. I know traffic is an issue, but traffic has been building along that road. The question is whether we can safely get traffic in and out of our development. We'll have blister strips, acceleration lanes, and across the street, we're directly across from the church, so it's a perfect lineup of that, of our entrance and their entrance. But I would say this respectfully, this developer who's had our zone, R1 and R2 zone property for perhaps 30 or 40 years since they did the master plan, should not be burdened by curing the traffic problems in town all by itself. Those traffic problems are cumulatively done, and it would be patently unfair to have these folks who've had this particular land zone for decades burdened with solving all of the traffic ills that we have in town on the virtue of this development itself, especially given the fact that we can develop as a matter of right, 140 homes. And I would suggest, Mr. Horst, it's not a threat to provide the facts so that the community knows what the alternative is with regard to what we're proposing. And there's no threat intended. It's just the R2 has doubles that are permitted as a matter of right in the R2 zoning classification. So it's important in terms of the trade-off that the Plan Commission has to meet and make on these kind of cases, as well as the community in terms of trying to vet it, to understand that there is an alternative to what we're proposing. And I would respectfully suggest members of this Plan Commission and all the members of the general public, this is by far a better alternative that can go with this particular land, given its current zoning classifications in terms of the worst case scenario. We think this is a very positive development for this particular site, and look forward to moving forward and working with the community to provide additional information as we move forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you. At this point in time, Wayne, can we have the staff report, please?
Thank you. Certainly this matter has covered many different facets. Certainly some are beyond what are mentioned in the staff report and what is beyond what is mentioned in your own zoning ordinance. The crux of the issue for staff is to provide a recommendation based upon the merits of the rezoning of the property, looking at what the comprehensive plan recommends. And certainly the Plan Commission is focused on paying reasonable regard to your comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan recommends low density residential development. The zoning ordinance defines that topic in terms of R1 and R2. And certainly, as Mr. Andreoli was focusing on, there's more than one type of residential development that's allowed within those zoning districts, as well as many other land uses as well. Staff is supportive of the rezoning of the property. There are many merits and topics discussed in the form of commitments, and certainly staff would encourage the additional discussion related to opportunities to explore with those topics. But again, staff is supportive of the rezoning to R2. Staff stands by its suggestion and language that we've put in the motion related to the dedication of the appropriate amount of right of way, provide for pathways, which may require the filling of a portion of Russell Lake, but that is part of your pathways plan, and staff is supportive of seeing that project come to fruition. Staff, again, is supportive of the petition, and I'll be happy to answer any further questions.
All right, thank you, Wayne. At this time, I'll open it up to members of the Plan Commission for any questions, comments. Go ahead, Larry. Looks like you
got one for. I just want a little more clarity on that last. I got a couple of questions, but I'd like a little clarity on that last comment. The 70-foot right-of-way and the requirement by the developer to fill in a portion of Russell Lake to achieve that. Is that correct?
No.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, that is there's nothing in your ordinance that requires that to be filled in. And there's some language that could interpret that as being required. There's some language that interpret that you give right of way, but you don't have to actually fill it in. We've got about And when the state acquired it, they may have acquired about 20 or 30 feet along there, Mr. Jones. There's another 40 feet. Some of that's over water. There is literally no way for us to be able to go ahead and fill that in any kind of cost-effective manner. And quite frankly, I'm not sure why the town would want it. Maybe Mr. DeLong could elaborate on that. But the blister strip starts right after that. And I'm talking about the deceleration lane going from west to east. That should be sufficient to be able to handle that. But there's no way for the developer. That lake's been there as long as the zoning classification or longer. I don't know how under any circumstances we can fill that in. That's why I strongly suggested that you at least defer that until the development plan and the planning stage, so we can at least seek a waiver from the board. It would be under your authority to be able to grant that. That way we could fully vet that particular issue. Because right now, if we can't do the development, I guess you could prevent us from doing the development in the R1, but we can still rezone we still develop the heck out of the R2, since this R1 parcel is a different parcel than the R2. So there's no port in the storm for anybody in this thing by requiring that as a part of the rezoning, but that'll be within your good offices to make a determination.
And that was kind of what my question was. I was just, and it was kind of also a question for Wayne. I just wanted some clarity. So if once a developer gives the right of way, if the town wants additional right of way, does that mean that in giving the right of way, the developer then has to make it, developable or land that a road could actually be constructed on? That's what I'm trying to figure out. That's what I'm unfamiliar with. Is there a requirement out there somewhere that we're missing?
The Plan Commission can certainly mandate the dedication of right-of-way or any other types of public improvements, and the legal test, and Mr. Taylor, you can provide additional color on this if you'd like. But the rationale is the legal standard. The rationale is there for the Plan Commission to request that public improvements be made or be dedicated, provided for when the development is causing that impact. And in this particular case, it's customary to request the appropriate amount of right-of-way to provide for your infrastructure that's recommended by your adopted plans. You have a pathways plan that looks for land.
But I guess my question, once again, the question I'm trying to confirm is, but does that then require the current owner of the land to improve it so it would be viable for the right-of-way they're providing? In other words, is there some requirement out there that they have to infill the lake?
So your question would be, that could be dealt with at a later date. The acquisition of the acquisition of the right-of-way could be answered this particular process. In a future development plan, the actual constructability and how to facilitate that connectivity would be that next conversation. Certainly there could be an avenue to request a waiver of the installation of that pathway if that's something the Plan Commission wants to discuss in the future. But staff would see these two very distinct and different conversations: the dedication of right-of-way versus the construction of a public improvement based upon the impact potentially caused by any future development.
Yes, I agree. I think they're two different issues. I agree with what Wayne said, and one has to do with just future needs, and your ordinance specifically addresses this. And then if there are if there's the need for the construction of roads or entrances or intersections or intersection changes now because of the impacts of this particular development, that's when construction is required. But those are two very distinct issues.
The other question is, just trying to clarify, down in this southwest corner, we keep talking about this 50-foot buffer of trees. Whose property do these trees sit on?
Well, we have, may I answer that, Mr. Jones?
No, you were breaking up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Better now?
Yeah.
We have a 50-foot section that we measured along Dr. Glover's property, we have a 50-foot section along there that has trees in it. It's about 50 feet wide. She was correct, and we went out there and measured it and confirmed that. Immediately to the south, when you go towards the Oldfields subdivision, they have a heavy tree line on their side. Our tree line still is pronounced, but maybe not quite as wide as it was up by Dr. Glover's property. But at Oldfields, that is common area, and there's trees there. So from Oldfields' perspective, we only this rezoned parcel only touches potentially across the street from the development, maybe 4 homes. But certainly, to answer your question, Mr. Jones, there is 50 feet of tree line that we have there along Dr. Glover's property. And she has, as she mentioned, a couple hundred feet of trees on hers end as well.
Okay. The other question I have is Spring Hill on well and septic.
I believe so.
Wayne, do we know?
I believe that's the case.
Okay.
But you do have several residents of the neighborhood that could validate that information.
My best friend in high school lived there 50 years ago, and I'm pretty sure it was on well and septic. Just guessing, but I'm pretty sure.
All right.
Anybody else have questions? Or Larry, are you finished?
Sure. I can always talk more, but I'm done.
Okay. Anybody else? Go ahead, George.
I cut out there for a minute and couldn't really hear all of what Mr. Andreoli said, but and I think I asked this question last time, but my question is that why is this a better development for the town if we would allow a rezoning to an R2 for this western third of the property, as opposed to leaving the zoning as is?
Is that a question to me, Mr. Lewis?
Yeah.
From our standpoint, it just provides a better mix of housing. It lays out better for us in terms of, again, when you look at full lots, we've got an extra 10 lots or so than over the 130 that would sit in the R1 zoning. So to that extent, it's densified over there by about 10 lots. It just lays out a little bit better because it flows from the cottage homes to the estate homes into the lake homes very, very nicely. There's some topographic features that allow it to lay out correctly and appropriately. So that is essentially how we viewed it in terms of how the property lays out. It just makes for an overall a better development in terms of the layout and those types of things. I'd be happy to try to answer it further. The other thing, it gives you an opportunity to commit to only single family homes on both parcels. To me, that's a net benefit that outweighs any suggestions of additional 10 homes. But you'll have to make that call, but that's the way I see it. Because what you've done is you've taken an R2 parcel that can have doubles, and you absolutely, by commitment in getting this rezoned, eliminate the possibilities if this master plan and site plan is approved of having any doubles on that R2 property at all. It may not make any difference to Dr. Glover, but it's sure going to make a difference to the Thornhill residents or the people over at Spring Hills. So we kind of have competing concerns. You've got the people to the west, and then you have the people to the east. And there's a tangible net benefit to everybody by only having single family homes on this property. just tangible net benefit.
Well, and my other comment is, and I don't know that it's really a question, is that I don't really like having that many homes back on a single road access that has to go down a hill and around and across a creek and back up a hill without any other access to the property. I've been looking around on the map and thinking about other developments here in town, and there just really aren't any with this number of homes that access off of one long road back off of the main road. And it just doesn't, and I know you can look at the different requirements as far as length and number of houses and those types of things, but it just the way it lays out does not, I don't like it from a safety perspective personally.
Well, please be reminded, and that may not change your concern, Mr. Lewis, but please be reminded that we have an emergency entrance to the east that is part of the original road cut to the property. There's 2 road cuts for that property and have been there for probably 40 years. And the one immediately to the east is the area where the emergency entrance will occur. And quite frankly, I understand your concern, and I think that's justifiable, and I think we're going to have to rise to the occasion with regard to the next step in this process if we get there, as it relates to that in terms of your eyes. But we have not had any concerns raised by fire or ambulance or police with regard to this rezoning to that effect. And normally when we encounter those kinds of concerns, they're usually in staff reports right at the bat, whether it's a rezoning or otherwise. And we just haven't had any concerns raised from either fire, ambulance, police, or anybody to be able to get into the subdivision, so long as we had two ways in.
Okay.
Is there any other members have any questions?
I have 2.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, and these are for Mr. Andreoli. One about the traffic and another about the home values. The first one, you have I think this is your new traffic report from A&F.
Yes, sir.
Done in August.
Yes, that was done in August.
On the table 2 level of service summary and then the conclusions, it shows if you use those blisters as a turn lane and a passing lane, it shows an A level of service, but then it has northbound and southbound approach as D and E. Are those the lanes within the development coming in and out of the property itself?
I don't know the answer to that, but hopefully Matt Brown is still with us, who can raise his hand and chat.
Okay, and then part B of that is that the traffic report says the proposed driveway should be full access drive with 1 inbound lane and 2 outbound lanes with driveway stopping for Oak Street. Is that the way it's drawn up?
Yes, sir. Yes, that was the way. We, quite frankly, has been my experience in the past 25 years when A&F makes a report on traffic and makes certain suggestions, we're loath to be able to come in and try to get modifications to those in front of this planning commission. So whatever they're suggesting, we're probably going to be stuck with in terms of the access and how we put this thing together at the development plan stage. Yes, sir.
Okay, but then back to the part A, which just says northbound and southbound approach were the actual driveways to get in and out.
Yes. Matt, are you with us?
Franz has raised his hand. Would you like me to promote him?
Yes, please.
Well, you
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, to answer your question, you are correct. The northbound and southbound approaches are the driveways coming out of the project and then across the street as well.
And Matt, for the record, can we get your name and address?
Sure. Matt Brown with A&F Engineering, 8365 Keystone Crossing, Indianapolis.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And Sorry, then my second question was, I'm sorry, one of the remonstrators or commenters raised this question, and I went back and looked, and I thought I'd ask to clarify. He was mentioning that in the report that we had discussed last time about the expected revenue to the schools, that you have 105 units at average market value of 700,000 and then 45 at 475,000. Are those, and then I think a few other people asked that, are those, you think those are reasonable market values for those 105 units?
Yes, we certainly do. We thought we were being average. And the reason that the estate homes, that includes the 10 really luxurious lake lots. And that raised the average slightly over what they would probably be without the home prices on those 10 lake lots. So we think we just had to extrapolate a number and try to be conservative about it. The other thing we did is we allowed the school to utilize the multiplier as far as kids, Mr. Papa. We did not try to impose one or suggest one. We allowed the schools to utilize their historical number of kids per home, and that was included in the report.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Is there anybody else who has questions? I do have a question related to the commitment for the, if the development plan is not approved, and the commitment on the rezoned property from R1 to R2, while it stays R2, there's a commitment that says they can only develop 31 homes on the property. Is that a commitment that, I mean, that stays with the property? So if somebody else attempts to develop, they have to live with that commitment? Is that correct, Dan or Wayne?
Yes, if it's actually a commitment that's being offered, it'll be recorded and it would run with the land. Without reviewing particular language, that's what we would expect to see. And staff reviews all those proposed commitments for compliance with our standards.
Okay. All right. If I recall from last month, a couple things. One is, and I think what's important to note is that the Plan Commission cannot arbitrarily approve or deny, development on R1, R2 if it complies with the ordinances as established. So if the ordinance allow 228 homes based upon essentially the maximum, if somebody comes in with that development and it is purely by the ordinances, it is pure, I mean, we are obligated to approve that. Is that not correct, Mr. Taylor?
Yeah, it wouldn't come before you in a zoning level even. It would just go straight to the development phase.
Right. So, yeah. I mean, so when we look at these properties, I think we do have to pay attention to what the alternative potential impact can be as we assess these. At least that's my opinion. Also, for the members listening, all we are doing now is we are going to make a recommendation to the town council. The town council will either approve or deny this rezone. So there will be another opportunity for you to be heard on this matter if it doesn't go in the way that you hope it goes. So with that, is there any more questions and comments on this matter? If there's not, is there a motion?
I can do one quick one.
Okay, sure, Larry.
I pulled out the the calculations for the impact on the schools, and it's kind of interesting. If you would cut the number of lots from 105 down to 50 and double the size of the lots, one of the things you find out is that you won't really actually be able to double the value of the house on there. So currently they're proposing $700,000 homes, which means they're going to try to sell these lots for about $140,000 a piece. If you double the lots and double the price, you'd still only get $200,000 a lot, and you'd probably end up with $1 million homes, which all sounds great and good, except for the fact that once you start putting in larger $1 million homes, you're probably going to have more kids. So actually cutting the number of lots to increase the size, hence alleviate this density concern, most likely will add to a greater negative impact upon the school system. I think the final thing to look at is, and to take a look at their, overall site plan, part and parcel of the reason they're trying to get the additional R2 zone is so they can create this third section of estate homes. The lakefront homes are fine. The cottages are probably what's allowed by code or by zoning already. It's the ability to get that little more cohesive nature down there in the southwest corner. And you got to remember, we do have a very, as Mike said, draconian drainage set of rules and regulations. But at the core of those is no one can develop a site and put any more impact onto adjoining properties than one already exists. And likely whatever they're going to do is going to improve it. So, I don't think Russell Lake really started off a lake. I think it's a man-made feature with a levee. And what they're proposing in here is to make a certain amount of improvements that have much more long-term benefit to anybody who's concerned about off-site drainage. So I don't know. That's my 2 bits.
All right. Is there any other comments?
Mr. Franz, I just want to point out you do have a few hands raised. I just want to ask if you're closing the hearing, please clarify that you are. Otherwise, you do have these couple hands.
No, I was to the point where we were going to close the hearing and move forward with a motion. With that, is there a motion? Would somebody like to make a motion on this matter?
Sure, I'll make a motion. I move that docket number 2020-24-Z to rezone 31.671 acres from the rural R1 residential zoning district to the R2 residential zoning district receive a favorable recommendation based upon the findings in the staff report as presented, with the recommendation being certified to the town council for adoption or rejection.
Do we need to attach the commitments at this point in time?
Yes.
Dan? Okay, so does he need to add that into the motion?
Yes, because the commitments have been offered, but you would have to accept them. So if that is your intentions, you would say with the commitments being offered by the petitioner.
With the conditions being offered by the petitioner.
Commitments.
Commitments.
Okay. All right. Is there a second to this motion?
Yes, I second it.
All right. We have a second. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Being none, Wayne, would you please take roll?
Certainly. Ms. Walker?
Aye.
Ms. Grabanowski?
Aye.
Mr. Lewis?
Nay.
Mr. Fedor?
You're on mute.
Aye. I'm sorry.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Papa?
Aye.
Mr. Franz?
Aye. Motion carries 6-1. We'll forward this to the town council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you, members.
Thank you. All right. Hopefully we can get this stuff wrapped up tonight. Let's. All right. Next on the docket is 2020-25-25 DP Overlay Warman Park, Block P3 Overlay Warman Park, petition for development plan approval to allow for the construction of a 47 plus or minus recreation park named Overlay Warman Park. Is the Wayne, are you taking this on? Are you, or is there the petitioner present, or are you handling this?
The petition is represented by a firm. Roger, do you?
If the petitioner's representative could please raise their hand. REA has raised their hand, so I'm promoting them to panelist.
All right, thanks.
Hi. It's Trisha McClellan with Rendell Ernsberger Associates. And we've been working with the Parks Department on Overly Warman. I'm going to run through this pretty quick because I know you guys have a long agenda, but I'm happy to answer any questions on specifics on the park itself. The land was approved as a part of the Von Terra subdivision development plan approval, including the parking that was actually constructed by the developer. The park is also included in the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, the last one that the Parks Department did, which is a part of the comprehensive plan. We do meet the town's requirements for storm drainage and water quality standards. We've been working with the folks over the stormwater just to provide the documentation that does show that that does occur. The park is largely a natural park. It will have mountain bike trails. It will have a variety of soft natural trails and paved trails, and then also a boardwalk. We do have a few wetlands that we are not disturbing. We're going around those and actually supplementing those with some new plantings. We're doing some reforestation and prairie plantings in addition to help reestablish the natural parts of the site. There will be no vehicular traffic actually in the park. The only vehicular traffic we'll have will be in that parking lot that's at the end of Godella Circle. We are going to have various connections for bike and pedestrian from the Big Four, which will be extended, the south extension of the Big Four, from Eagle Creek to the Von Terra subdivision. So we'll have a connection actually to the Big Four, which we hope will alleviate some of those parking needs with people being able to access the site through bike or on their foot on the Big Four. The structures, and I think this is mentioned in the staff report, they're compatible with other structures that are included in the Zionsville parks. The shelters will match the shelter that's out at Elm Street Green, and then the site furniture will match the furniture that's out at Mulberry Fields. With that, I'll turn it over if there are any questions on specifics of the park.
All right, well, I'm going to see if there's any public comment at this point in time. Is there any public? Thank you for your comments. And if we have questions, we'll come back to you. Are there any members of the public who'd like to comment on this matter? If so, raise your hand.
Mr. Friends, there is one hand raised. All
right.
We'll promote Jake Bradley.
State your name and address, please.
Good evening.
Hello.
My name is Jake Bradley. I live at 5834 Muscadine Way in the Von Terra subdivision. I am here as a representative of a Indiana nonprofit called the Friends of Overly Warman Park. We are registered with Indiana. We have applied for 501c3 status. We are in our infancy. We just opened about a week ago. We're still working on getting our website up, but we wanted to make our presence known, introduce ourselves, and express support for this project. We are incredibly excited about this park and what it's going to do for our community, and we certainly want to express our support for this terrific new asset. We look forward to working with the town and all of its various constituents and key stakeholders throughout the development of the park and the life of the park. In addition to assisting in any way that we can, we have 3 priorities that we intend to fully work with the town and all key stakeholders. The first is the parking lot. We would like to see visual screening and berming of the parking lot to give some screening for the Von Terra residents. Additionally, there is some concern among our membership of access. There's only one ingress and egress for vehicular traffic at this time. We would like to see a second entrance and exit for vehicles and would certainly be willing to help with that. And then also to help reduce vehicular traffic flow while the second entrance and exit is being in process. We'd like to see the completion of the rail trail from the 100-foot bridge to the existing path that's in Von Terra right now. We're hopeful that that preparation can be ongoing. Right now, we understand there may be one landholder holdout that's still being worked through, but hopefully all of the possible preparation can be put in place so that that connection will be completed before or in conjunction with the opening of the park. So again, the Friends of Overly Warman Park expresses our support for this fantastic project, and we look forward to working with you.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anybody else who'd like to comment on this from the public? Roger?
There are no other hands raised.
All right. Wayne, can I have the staff report, please?
Thank you. Staff is supportive of the petition as it's been filed. Certainly the staff has been working for a number of years to get to this point. We certainly congratulate the consulting team, the Parks Board, and town administration with their efforts. Certainly staff has worked with the petitioner related to the stormwater ordinance and other development standards, and certainly again is supportive of the petition and is recommending approval as it's been filed. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Wayne. At this point, is there any questions, comments from any members of the Plan Commission?
I have a question because I'm looking at the recommended motion and it says denied or continued, and I'd like to say approved. I think it's a typo.
Feel free to insert that word.
All right. We can change the recommended motion. You know that, right?
It's there. Earlier in the motion, it says be approved.
Okay, yes, it does. It does. Okay, so let me do that, okay? I move the docket number 2020-25 DP to allow for the construction of a 47 plus or minus recreation park named Overly Warman Park in the residential zoning district be approved based on the findings of the staff report, staff recommendations, and submitting findings of fact as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Is there any further discussion?
Just real quick, could Mary have changed it to the Overly Grabanowski Park?
Probably
I'd
not.
love to, but I don't live anywhere near there, and I taught the Warman kids.
All right. So Wayne, would you please take roll?
Certainly. Ms. Grabanowski.
Aye.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Fedor.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Papa.
Aye.
Mr. Franz.
Aye.
Ms. Walker.
Aye.
All right. So the motion carries 7-0. It's approved, and I think it's going to make a wonderful addition to the town of Zionsville. Next item on the docket, 20-29-Z, ZCS, Zionsville Community Schools rezone. Petition for zone map change to rezone approximately 44.36 acres from the urban RSF2 residential zoning district to the SU special use zoning district. Site address is 8602 East County Road 500 South. Is the petitioner present?
If the petitioner could please raise their hand for identification. We have 2 hands raised. I will begin with, we have John Becker, Carla Mattis, and also Scott Robinson has raised his hand. One just dropped off. We'll start with Scott Robinson and see if we need to go elsewhere.
All right, sounds good.
I have lost audio. I can't hear you folks. Scott Robinson here.
We can hear you. All right.
Okay, now, Dave, I just heard that. Thank you very much. We actually have a presenter before us this evening. I believe we're represented in this action by Churchill and Antrim. Are those folks on the call?
We have Carla Mattis and also John Becker. Which should I promote?
John Becker, please.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Greetings. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We recently entered into a purchase agreement in which Zionsville Community Schools is going to be purchasing about 44.36 acres with the Peters family. This is located near Zionsville Avenue and County Road 875. You may be aware that the school already owns acreage to the north of this area. If you're familiar with the ball fields, or if you've driven by north on 875, you realize that there's a lot of construction that is going to be going on. We're asking tonight that the property be rezoned to SU1. That is the zoning district your ordinance has designated for school uses. Currently, we do not have a specific proposal for the site today. It's more of a strategic purchase. Obviously, the district is growing, and the ability to acquire land right next to other land is of a huge benefit to not only the school district, but also the taxpayers. We also believe that there's going to be opportunities for different dynamics in the area, given that we own and utilize the land in the north. There has been right-of-way dedicated in the past along both Zionsville Avenue and County Road 875. That, according to our research, is not on par with the thoroughfare plan to that extent. We did submit a statement of commitments indicating that we would be willing to dedicate 55 feet of right-of-way along 500 South, which is also known as Zionsville Avenue. Happy to answer any questions the commission might have tonight.
All right, thank you. At this point in time, I'll ask, are there any members of the public who'd like to comment on this matter?
We do have one hand raised. I will promote S. Clausen.
All right.
Hi, I know everyone's asked if you can hear us, but we're, I guess we're Dr. Suparna and Rachel Clausen. We live in 8493 East, 500 South. We live on, I think what you guys have referred to as Zionsville Avenue, but what we know to be is 500 South or Whitestown Parkway. So we live directly across the street from the now existing fields. And our backyard has, after the purchase of our home in the past year, has become a new development zone as well. So we wanted to just chat with you guys about some of the proposals you guys have put out, because increasingly we're experiencing a lot of traffic, noise and traffic pollution along the way. And that's just made what is existing a small county road have a lot of traffic that our kids, when they're out playing, are are getting exposed to. The cars are going by very quickly. I have a few questions for the council, specifically with regards to what has been previously mentioned, which was the right-of-way and entrance. We again live on the Zionsville 500 South, and it's a small road. And if there's a school or some sort of school buildings to be built, where would, number one, the entrances be proposed to be laid out in? Two, what would be done for the quality of the road and to help improve the traffic that we just don't have land here because our yard just abuts quite closely Zionsville Road for expansion. Otherwise, how would we accommodate that for increased traffic, larger vehicles than what I think this road is designated for? And then 2, we are the first house on Brock's Meadows, and we were wondering if there could be any accommodations for screening, either by foliage or by fences, just to sort of delineate the spaces there. And then I believe my last question is how, in an effort to protect traffic, so our property values for our homes, which are on larger lots and are in general $1 million plus valued right now, we want to maintain the value of Brock's Meadows and the properties here. We really want to have a frank conversation with the school to make sure that we don't end up with industrial buildings across the street from these really beautiful large estate lots that myself and our neighbors have. So I know there's a lot of questions out there, but we want to begin this dialogue with the school here.
All right, thank you. I'll let anybody from the school who'd like to comment on any of those questions, if you can promote them back. Roger, I don't know who would
Folks,
like to address those.
This is Matt Skelton. I'm attorney for the school corporation. I'm sorry it's showing up as my assistant on your machine. I've been trying to figure out how to fix that and I'm not able to do it. So there we go. All right.
Can you get the address too then, please?
Yeah, sure. This is Matt Skelton. I'm a partner with Church Hitland Antrim with offices at 2 North 9th Street in Noblesville. And thank you for John Becker, who stood in there for me at the beginning while we were getting this sorted out. On the call this evening is also Scott Robinson, the superintendent, Rebecca Kaufman, the assistant superintendent, and also Mike Schaefer, our chief financial officer. And what I would suggest is that we might want to just have a in-person, socially distanced in-person meeting with these folks. We're going to be neighbors for a long time, and I think that we could, we don't have any immediate plans to develop the property, so that's something that we could receive input on as we plan for the future. But the kinds of questions that were asked are ones that would be answered probably by a future school board and new development proposals that would happen before you in the future.
All right. Is there any additional public comment?
Mr. Franz, there are no other hands raised.
All right. Wayne, can we have the staff report, please?
Wait. The board is, I think all membership is familiar with staff's general support of requests to rezone property for special uses. Special uses generally locate where their cause takes them or where their service is needed. And in this particular case, you have the Zionsville Community School Corporation is looking to expand its footprint where it's made an investment in the community and expanding its infrastructure southerly to embrace several different new frontages of roadways, as well as to expand its footprint in the area. The comprehensive plan itself does not substantiate generally recommendations on special uses. Again, special uses locate where they're best needed and best suited for their role in service. With that in mind, staff is supportive of the petition as it's been filed, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Wayne. At this point in time, I'll throw it open to any members of the Plan Commission.
Wayne, I have a question. Didn't we previously, either on the BZA, approve some sort of changes for the school parcel to go out north? I'm trying to find out what that is. Up on 400 South. Or am I thinking of something else?
There's a few different things you might be thinking of. There was a land swap that occurred a number of years back where 10 acres, that was a northern piece of ground, what that was owned by the school. It was traded to the town with some other parcels in a different transaction. That might be one item you're thinking about. There was a recent activity, I'd say maybe 18 months ago with the BZA related to a cell tower petition that was denied. But other than that, those are the two things that jump out at me offhand.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else have anything? And just for, public information, once the school does determine what they want to do with this property, it will be subject to development plan process at that time. So with that, is there a motion for this matter?
I move that docket, let me get this where I can see in my light right. I move that docket 2020-29-Z to rezone 44.368 acres from urban RSF2 residential zoning district to an SU1 special use zoning receive a favorable recommendation based on the findings of fact and report as presented, with the recommendation being certified to the town council for adoption or rejection.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
I second.
Wayne, would you please take roll?
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Fedor?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Papa?
Aye.
Mr. Franz?
Aye.
Mrs. Walker?
Aye.
Mrs. Grabanowski?
Aye.
And motion carries 7-0, so we will forward this to the town council with a favorable recommendation. Next on the docket is, I gotta read this.
Suez.
So it's 20-31RP, Towers replat, lot 19 and 20, Lost Run Lane, petition for replat to allow for the combining of lots 19 and 20 as reflected in the primary plat of subdivision Lost Run Farms, and to allow for the vacation of a 7-foot 5-inch easement located on each side of the common lot line in the urban RSF2 residential zoning district. Is the petitioner present? Please raise your hand to be recognized.
I will be promoting Mr. Roger Burris.
All right.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Nice to be with you tonight. Roger Burris with offices at 410 West Oak Street in Zionsville. I'm here representing Daniel Talrus, the owner of lots 19 and 20 in Lost Run Farm. Mr. Talrus's home is on lot 20. Lot 19 is currently unimproved, other than there's a driveway and kind of a parking area on there. But Mr. Talrus would like to improve that lot. And he'd like to erect some landscaping and
I think we can get done with this pretty soon.
maybe a pool house, some other improvements on that lot. And because of the way the house sits, he's not currently able to do that as planned. So he's proposing to replat these two lots into one lot. And so it would not be a vacation. Actually, it would involve the vacation of the two 7.5-foot drainage easements on either side of the common boundary line. But that's something that the town council has to approve. And in fact, they did so this morning, at least on first reading, passed an ordinance to vacate those drainage easements. But the Plan Commission's role would be to consider the replat and whether that would be in the town's interest. We think it is. The only issue I'm aware of is that the Homeowners Association asked for us to include some provisions in the replat. Basically, they want to ensure that my client would still have to pay for two lots in terms of the Homeowners Association dues. Now, we've agreed to that. we've agreed to include the language in the replat that they've requested. And I think they are in support of the petition based upon that commitment by us. And by the way, do we need to amend the rules or something regarding notice by first class mail?
Yeah, you're correct on that one. Probably should have done that for a few of them, I guess. So I'll take a motion. That's a motion, correct, Dan? All right, so I'll take I'd like a motion to amend the rules to allow for notice by first class mail versus registered mail.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. All right, motion carries 7-0. Thank you. We'll clean up some other business as we give us a break. So, all right. So, is that it for your comment?
Yes, we're asking for approval of this replat, and be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. All right. Thank you. At this point in time, is there any public comment on this matter?
There are no hands raised.
All right, Wayne, can we have staff report?
Thank you. Staff is supportive of the petition as it's been. Horst did a great job outlining the topic at hand. That the matter needs to reappear at Town Council in their October hearing, or I'm sorry, October meeting for second reading. So with this in mind, the action of the Plan Commission tonight would be contingent upon finalization of the action of the Town Council.
All right, thank you, Wayne. At this point in time, is there any questions or comments from any of the members of the Plan Commission?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Jeff.
How does the agreement with the HOA get entered into this?
So the replat will be signed by my client and then recorded, and it will also include a cross-reference to the declaration of covenants, conditions, and restrictions for the subdivision. So actually 2 ways to make sure that any future owners would understand what they might be getting into.
I just wondered because the letter from the HOA says subject to the following 2 conditions, and that the following language be added to the language of the dedication certificate. And then it says this replat does merge or alter the character of such lots, and I think it should say does not.
I think you're right. It does. Yeah, that's a typo that I will make.
Yeah, there's
sure.
an extra space there too. I think they meant to go back and type not there.
Right. Yep. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments? If there are none, is there a motion?
I move to approve that docket number 2020-31-RP replat to allow for the combining of lots 19 and 20 as reflected on the proposed replat lots 19 and 20 of subdivision Lost Run Farms as attached in Exhibit 5 be approved based on the findings established at the public hearing as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further comment? Being none, Wayne, can we have a roll?
Just for, if I could, we should probably just make clear that, Mary, does your motion include the approval of the commitments which contain the
I may have missed, yes, it probably does. I may have missed that. Thank you.
Okay, so it's amended to include the commitments. Does the second agree with that amendment?
Yes.
Okay, Wayne, can we have a roll then?
Mr. Fedor?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Papa?
Aye.
Mr. Franz?
Aye.
Mrs. Walker?
Aye.
Mrs. Grabanowski?
Aye.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
All right, motion carries 7-0. The replat's approved. Next, okay, so real quickly, I think we need to have motions to allow for dockets number 2020-29Z and 2020-31RP to waive the registered mail requirement in lieu of use of first-class postage for notice. Can I have a motion or so moved on that one?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
By nay. Okay, motion carries. We'll capture that one on the front end this time. Next item on the docket is 20-32DP. Zionsville Community Schools Transportation Center Annex petition for development 9770 East 600 South petition for development plan approval to provide for the development of transportation annex to facilitate additional bus parking, 44 spaces, and employee parking, 42 spaces in the SU1 special use zoning district. Is the petitioner present?
Yes. I have promoted Chuck Tyler.
Okay. Please proceed.
Yes, Chuck Tyler with Fanning Howie Associates Architects for Zionsville Community Schools. Offices at 350 East New York, Indianapolis, and residence at 7612 Beekman Terrace, Zionsville. As noted previously, Dr. Scott Robison, Superintendent, Mike Schaefer, CFO, Rebecca Kaufman, Assistant Superintendent for Operations, and Brittany Heidenreich, my civil engineer with TLF, are also available this evening. And if we could, Roger, Rebecca Kaufman has some introductory comments for the district.
Thank you. I am promoting her also.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. This evening, the item that's before you is really action upon our community support for our referendum last fall, as a big portion of the referendum was to support all of our enrollment growth that we're seeing across our community with our project that we've recently started with the new elementary. This aspect tonight that we're here to talk about is an expansion of our transportation center so that we can continue to serve the families within our community with school transportation. Chuck and Brittany will talk about the technical aspects of our plans, and we're here to help answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Becky. So the transportation center for the district is on the same campus as Zionsville Middle School. This project initially was an evaluation of how we might expand the existing paved area to tweak and most critically provide additional bus parking that the district is going to need as enrollment continues to increase. Those efforts were really only successful in adding about 8 to 10 buses to that area. And so after further review and discussion, we shifted our focus to the area immediately south of the existing Zionsville Middle School track, which was green space for some of the field events for the sporting complex. And that also fronts on 600 South. At this location, we are able to provide 44 bus parking locations and 42 driver positions. And that now puts us in the window of meeting the district's needs in more of the 8 to 10 year spectrum. This area, we've been working with staff, with the city engineer, the town engineer, and town departments to meet the various zoning requirements applicable to this project with regard to drainage, landscaping, lighting, access. It will utilize the existing south access to the middle school and transportation center, so there is no additional curb cut required on 600 South. The district is also making commitments for additional right-of-way to be provided to the town along 600 South, as well as a commitment regarding a future pathway as the pathway development can be started and developed along 600 South at this property in the future. With that, I will turn it back to you, and our team is available to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody in the public who would like to make a comment on this? Roger?
There are no hands raised.
All right. Wayne, can we have staff report, please?
Thank you. Staff is supportive of the petition as it's been filed and as the file reflects the submitting of commitments for conversation related to the project. The petitioner has articulated the filing. The land is currently open space as utilized by the school and is proposed to be improved as described this evening. Again, staff is supportive of the petition as it's been filed, inclusive of the commitments, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Wayne. First off, at this point, I would like a motion to allow for the waiver of registered mail notification in lieu of first-class postage.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay, motion carries. Okay. Is there any comments from any of the members of the Plan Commission on this matter? Questions? If there are none, would anyone like to make a motion?
I move that docket 2020-32-DP to provide for development of a transportation annex to facilitate additional bus parking, 44 spaces, and employee parking, 42 spaces, in the SU1 special use zoning districts be approved based on findings in the staff report, staff recommendations, and submitted findings of facts.
Were there commitments on this one too, Wayne?
Correct.
Okay, Josh, you would need to add.
Including the commitments.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Wayne, would you, any further discussion on this matter? Wayne, would you please take roll?
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Papa?
Aye.
Mr. Franz?
Aye.
Mrs. Walker?
Aye.
Mrs. Grabanowski?
Aye.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Fedor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 7-0, so that's approved. On to the next item. I don't know, let's see if we can get through this tonight. 2020-30-DP, Brick Street LLC, 175 South Main, petition for development plan approval to provide for a building addition and exterior improvements to an existing boutique hotel, restaurant, bar, and event space in the VBD Village Business Zoning District. Is the petitioner present?
I have.
Yes, Mr. President.
Matt Price.
All right, please proceed.
Hello. Thank you very much. For the record, my name is Matt Price. I'm an attorney with the Denton's Law Firm at 10 West Market Street, Indianapolis, Indiana. Here tonight on behalf of the Brick Street Inn and Auberge restaurant. With me this evening, I have Paul Vizalis, the owner of the Brick Street Inn and the Auberge restaurant. And part of our development team with me tonight is Caroline Slada and Casey Ryan. Caroline is going to take us through the specifics of the building addition and the exterior renovations to give you kind of a full flavor of what we're proposing. And then Paul, Caroline, and I will all be available to answer any questions that you have. And we, like the other public hearings tonight, would also at the appropriate time request the waiver of the permitting the first class notice in lieu of the registered mail as well. So with Roger's permission, I'd like to ask that he allow Caroline to be our presenter for the technical aspects of the proposal, then I can address a couple of the comments in the staff report as well. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Hey, Matt, can I interrupt just a minute?
Yeah.
Talked to Wayne about this earlier, and I was fumbling around earlier. So I have a business relationship with Paul Vazolis. He is a tenant in a building of mine that I own in downtown Indianapolis. He's got that space because he's developing a project across the street. So I don't have any financial interest in the project down there. I don't have any financial interest in any of Paul's business up in Zionsville. But just for all, clarification, I want to make sure that was out on the table. And if there's any concern, make sure it gets addressed.
I appreciate you mentioning that, Mr. Jones. No concern on our part, and appreciate again you mentioning that.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Can everyone see the screen as well?
I can.
Okay, great. So thanks, Matt, for the introduction. My name's Caroline Slota. I'm with Booth Hansen. We're the architects for this project. And I'll walk you through what we're proposing here for phase 1 of the Brick Street Inn addition. So just to briefly orient everyone, in case anyone isn't aware, the Brick Street Inn is right in downtown Zionsville in the Urban Village Business District. It's nearest the Main Street and Pine intersections. As Matt said, there are 2 functions in this building currently. There's the Brick Street Inn Hotel, and there's the Auberge French restaurant. So just to give everyone a sense of what that looks like, here is the Brick Street Inn Hotel view from Main Street. You can see the white picket fence. There's an outdoor patio in front of the building. And then if you turn the corner to the south, you'll see the image on the right. This is sort of the elevation that we're going to be improving in this phase. And this is also an image of the outdoor patio to give you a sense of the scale of the space. So generally speaking, the depth of this is about 15 feet from the face of the building out to the property line. And the patio essentially extends the width of the existing building. Okay, we are calling this phase 1 because this is a small portion of a larger development planned for this project. When we first started working with the owner, we were talking about a larger expansion of the hotel function to the south, to the east of the project, and wrapping around to Elm Street that all surrounds an off-street parking plaza. But after consideration of the plans, we are focusing right now on just updating and improving the existing building and its current functions. The 3 components of this project is the outdoor patio renovation and expansion, a small restaurant addition to the south of the building, and some interior work to the existing kitchen. So we want to renovate it and expand it into the basement. And the purpose of that is to get the existing building prepared for the next phase, where we're anticipating larger banquet functions. So we want to get the restaurant ready to go for larger services. Okay, so first we'll focus on the outdoor patio. This is a diagrammatic rendered plan of what the landscape design out there. So the biggest move is that we'll be replacing the white picket fence with a masonry garden wall with iron railing infill that's going to wrap around the perimeter of the patio and wrap around the southern edge and then return back towards the new addition, creating a small enclosure for the outdoor patio. This patio can be broken out into 3 separate zones. There's the restaurant entry zone, which is represented by the 2 arrows along the north side. The front door to the restaurant is over here. I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, but it's the door with the arrow pointing inside the building. So that's the main door to the restaurant. So that's where it currently is, so we won't be changing that. This is essentially a queuing area for entry to the restaurant or for seating to the outdoor patio. The outdoor patio is going to remain generally as it is currently. The major improvement we'll be doing is replacing the steps to the service door to make them a little bit more compact. And the goal for that was to provide a little bit more space for seating. The expanded area is just to the existing patio, where we're showing a few additional seats. And overhead, there's an umbrella for overhead protection. This area is also allocated for a small performance area. And that's why there's an umbrella that would be released for performances or for any inclement weather. The third zone is more of a landscaped area. It's against the garden wall to the south. So the idea there is there'll be a new landscape bed, a bench, and that bench would be flanked by 2 ornamental trees on either side. So going on to some images to sort of give you a sense of the design intent. So the umbrella, this is an idea of the umbrella that would be out there. We'll have a few freestanding planters with sculptural topiary, the brick wall with the iron gates. So this is representative of the garden wall. And then down here is representative of the bench with the 2 ornamental trees on either side. In addition to that, we're also looking at an overhead covering for the outdoor dining space and a temporary enclosure for shoulder seasons, particularly in the spring and the fall, in order to extend the outdoor dining season. So the red dashed lines represent overhead items for weather protection. And the idea behind this is sort of like a reminiscent of a Parisian cafe, similar to the image that you see on the upper left-hand corner where there's a awning retracted, or an awning, I'm sorry, it's released with panels on all sides to provide weather protection. This is a rendering of what we're proposing. So the overhead structure is a pergola. This is a lightweight item. We've got 3 posts coming down, and the fabric portion of the roof is the retractable element. In the event that shading is not needed, this can be retracted all the way against the building, or it can be fully released in order to provide shading underneath. These 2 images show the idea of the seasonal enclosure. So the idea is to provide as much flexibility as possible. The left image shows the temporary enclosure on the north and south edges of the pergola, and the image on the right shows the enclosure on all 3 sides. And then this is an image of the pergola retracted. So this is what it would look like in the wintertime. Moving on to signage elements. So there are currently 2 signs on the building that on or near the building that we're not going to be moving. There's an existing wall sign identifying the Brick Street Inn Hotel, which is above the central door. There's an existing freestanding sign right off of the sidewalk entry to the restaurant. And we are proposing a arbor sign that's going to go over the entry point to the restaurant. That'll be integrated with the metalwork on the garden wall. So this will have some integrated siding that lighting that would wash the surface of light on the sign. And since we are proposing a pergola over the entire outdoor area, we're also looking at illuminating the existing wall sign. Here's another image of the Main Street view, and this is an example, or this is the idea behind the arbor sign with the signage integrated. Some exterior lighting we'll be also looking at replacing. Primarily, we'll have integrated wall lights with the garden wall As you can see here, these will be recessed into the wall. We'll have a series of bollard lights along the perimeter in the landscape area. Both of those types of lights are intended to illuminate the ground surface only, so no uplighting is being proposed. There are 2 sconces that are to remain on either side of the door. And the only somewhat overhead lighting we're proposing are in the trees, and that would be mostly atmospheric lighting. So these are tree down lights. And the intent behind those is to cast shadows of the tree branches on the surface, on the walking surface. This is a lighting study that we worked with a lighting designer with to demonstrate the levels of light and their distribution throughout the site. Here's an image of the materials. So the patio paving, we're intending to remove and replace the existing brick pavers. So that's why we're including them in this palette. The restaurant addition, which I'll touch on in a moment, will be a metal cladding, and the color will be a dark bronze color to work with the existing building color. The pergola is intended to be a light colored fabric. And then the enclosure, if you can see the precedent image on the upper right, is going to be a dark as well to go with the restaurant addition. The next component is the small restaurant addition. I should say this is only to the dining room. Here are elevations of the proposed concept for the addition. The idea behind this was to provide a small room that could possibly be rented out for private events, or it could be for additional seating at the restaurant whenever that space is not utilized. The idea behind it was to make a really light-filled room, and thinking about it relative to the existing building, we sort of thought about it as a English greenhouse. So that's why you're seeing the panes of glass that are small that also relate to the window panes of the existing building. And this rendering is taken from sort of the southwest corner of the Brick Street Inn from Main Street. So you'll see the second arbor entry and then the addition beyond. The third component is the existing kitchen renovation and expansion. Given that we're mostly looking at exterior for a development plan, we just want to touch on some of the items that would affect the exterior. The area seen here on the interior of the building is the area we're planning on excavating in the basement to expand the kitchen. The existing kitchen is on level 1, and we're planning on maintaining it at that location. But since we are renovating, we thought it's a good opportunity to try to relocate some of these, some of this equipment that's on the south elevation. So we're going to be we're looking at rerouting the kitchen hood exhaust intake and the AC wall unit. The exhaust would be routed through the building, while the intake would be routed through the wall. And then the AC unit will be part of an upgrade to the existing HVAC. The condensers we're looking at relocating to the north side of the existing building. And I'll close here. So this is the rendering that we've already looked at, and thank you for your time, and we're here to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you. At this point in time, is there any members of the public who'd like to comment on this matter?
I'm going to need to close down the shared screen so I have access to the.
Looks like there's one person who wants to comment.
Yes, I will promote Drew Kogan to panelist. Mr. Cogan, are you there?
Hello.
Mr. Cogan?
Drew?
I think he's going to video.
Mr. Franz, everything I have shows that he has been promoted.
He's
not
showing up.
muted.
He's showing up on our screen. I mean, his window is. Mr. Cogan, are you there? All right, well, let's leave his window open. He says he's trying. Okay.
You can't get you. It doesn't show that. It does not show that you are muted. I don't see your picture, but it doesn't say that you're muted. Weird. Okay, what do you want to say? And I'll say it for you. Okay. I didn't see it. I didn't see it. I can hear you on my phone, but not on the computer.
Mary, why don't you put him on speaker phone and then play it that way?
Okay. Dave says I should put you on speaker and then you can hear him. Okay, let me try and do that if I can figure out how to do that. I'm so clueless. Okay, hold on. Okay, hold on. I think he's on speaker.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, hold him close to the mic.
I'm so sorry. I can't. I'd be at the meeting if I was public. My name is Drew Cogan, 195 South Main Street next door. Wayne, as you know, I would be thrilled for them to move the air conditioning, the exhaust fan, everything on the other side of the building, because started talking to you 8 years ago and you never were able to do anything about this. And Paul's a great guy, a wonderful neighbor. My one concern is the big brick wall on the south side of his building. If you look at it, it's going to block all the rest of Main Street. It's probably an asset to me. Is there brick on my side of the of that wall?
Speak louder.
Is there brick on my side of that wall, or is it cement block?
We'll have to give them an opportunity to answer that after you're finished your comments.
Okay. Another concern is I have 50-year-old trees, 2 years down the road, 3 years, these trees are going to die with the erection of this brick wall, with the foundation of it. I would just like something in writing or on record that Paul, and I'm sure he would, take down these trees if this happens to kill these trees. Get the root system. That's my big concern. I'm moving the because I'm not allowed to you've lived out here a long time, used to be able to look down Main Street and see the steeple on the church. Current building got built and blocked that. This is another blockage, you know, of, I wonder if it could be moved to the east wall and sort of keep that openness. It's just an idea. I just hate to see these big brick building walls going up for the beauty of Main Street. And Wayne, I've got one question for you. Wayne, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, just
Unmute, Wayne.
continue, Drew, with your questions and comments.
And we had a for sale sign up there. You sent me a letter that said I could not have a for sale sign between the sidewalk on the street, correct? I have a copy of the letter.
Correct. Our code enforcement officer provided correspondence to a number of parties, and your land was one of them, yes.
Brick Street didn't have 2 to 4 signs all time there. How come they're allowed to do it and I wasn't?
There's no provision for them either. Certainly, we can check it out. That's certainly fine.
Check this out years ago. So you will check it out now? Because they're all up on Main Street. I get a letter, nobody else does.
I mean, I think this is getting, I mean, this is really kind of off topic. I think given that we're under a tight time constraint, if you could take that up with Wayne directly, I'd appreciate that.
Many times. Over 8 years. So, you know, this is the one way to address it. But the brick wall does concern me. I'll be honest, I hope there's brick on my side. Thrilled to death that they're moving the air conditioner. So, you know, and Paul's a great neighbor. We help each other out all the time. So I'm for this project, but there's just some concerns.
All right. Thank you very much. Would the petitioner like to comment?
Good night, Drew.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Mary, for doing that so we could all hear. I think the first comment was one that's more of a factual matter that we can clarify, which is whether there will be bricks on Drew's side of the wall so that he can, whether he could see bricks on his side. And I believe the answer to that is yes. And I'd like Caroline to confirm that for me. And maybe as part of that answer, if she could talk a little bit about the height of the wall, because we've tried to make the height of the wall so that it is not a blockade and doesn't block a view or anything like that. It's limited in height and really matches, I think, the height of the existing picket fence. But Caroline, if you could answer that.
Yeah, so the intent for the brick wall is to have brick on both sides. We do want to maintain a nice aesthetic of this wall. Regarding the height, we are going to be looking at openness in the wall. Currently, the wall along the southern edge of the property is intended to be a little taller in order to provide a backdrop for the bench and the trees as you're looking south toward that area. But we are looking at creating openings to maintain that visual connection through the wall. So it won't be a solid brick wall. It will have some openings in it as well.
Okay. He also mentioned the trees, if there's negative impact on the trees.
Go ahead, Caroline.
Yeah, we will look at the drip line of all the existing trees and, you know, be mindful of those. I think we will work with Paul and ask Paul to keep an eye on those trees as well.
And they do have Caroline, I believe the design of the wall includes a feature that would allow rainwater, for example, to go through the wall and into the soils.
Correct. So we're not changing the drainage strategy at all at the outdoor dining area. We will be regrading it in order to reduce the slope of the outdoor seating because currently it's a little too steep for tables and chairs. So we will be reducing that. However, the strategy remains the same and there will be a drainage path for water to pass through the wall.
All right. Is there any other public comment on it? Roger, I forgot to ask as a follow-up. Is there any other hands?
Mr. Franz, there are no other hands raised.
All right, then Wayne, can we have a staff report, please?
Certainly. Staff is supportive of the petition as it's been presented to you this evening. There's a few items to touch upon with this petition, just more for informational purposes. Certainly the expansion of the outdoor dining area will require additional thought specific to a number of items, but inclusive of parking and how the expanded use as well as the expanded footprint of the restaurant provides and addresses the road impact fee and sewer impact fee. Certainly, as we saw from the petitioner's photographs, the current dining area contains maybe a half a dozen or so bistro-style tabletops. Certainly, the illustration that the petitioner provides illustrates up to 60 seats in that plaza outdoor area. Certainly, there's a number of factors currently limiting the actuality of that plan, such as our current pandemic. But be that as it may, certainly as the petition rolls forward and the project rolls forward, certainly we want to make the petitioner well aware of the costs and of embracing additional expansion. The building code will look to address how those patrons are provided for, and certainly the architect, I'm sure, will be skillfully work through those issues. But there are topics to be addressed nonetheless. Certainly, this in the VBD, the zoning allows for 0-foot setback for structures and buildings. Certainly, the wall that's been mentioned this evening, while it is supported by ordinance, it's good to have a dialogue with the neighbor regarding how that wall potentially could negatively impact or provide shadowing that isn't desired or other features. So good to have that dialogue. The one item that we mentioned in the outdoor or in the staff report is the outdoor operations specific to the lower platform area. Certainly, staff is looking for additional information related to what exactly is intended there. With that in mind, staff again is supportive of the petition as filed, and I would reference that this project certainly is one piece of a larger plan that the property owner is contemplating, and certainly we fully believe that the parking ultimately will be addressed by the future improvements of to the overall property that's owned by the petitioner. With all that in mind, staff is happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Wayne. At this point in time, I'll open it up to members of the Plan Commission for any questions, comments.
Just to confirm, the brick wall will be taller towards the south side between you and Mr. Cogan's property, but on the north side, it looks like it stays down more in keeping with the wall along Main Street. Is that right?
Yes, I believe that the wall along Main Street is 3 feet 6 inches, which just looking at that picket fence today seems similar in height to that exists today.
But there's walls that return to the east on the south and the north end. It looks like the one on the north end stays at the lower elevation.
think that's correct.
That's what I'm trying to confirm.
And Caroline, could you do that for me? I'm sorry, Roger, I know we're promoting back and forth here.
Hi, yes, what Matt said is correct, that the wall along the north edge remains low and the wall along the south edge will be tall. And the reason for that is because we're planning for a ramp and a set of steps to the new addition in the future. So we are planning for a wall that will accommodate that change.
Any additional questions? All right, first off, we need to grant the motion that Matt requested relative to use of first-class postage versus registered mail. So is there a motion to accept that?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, all in favor signify by aye.
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 Nay, okay, that's approved. If there's no additional comments, questions to the petitioner, is there a motion on this matter?
I move that docket 2020-30DP to allow development plan approval for a building addition and exterior improvements to an existing boutique hotel, restaurant, bar, and event space in the Village Business Zoning District be approved based on the findings in the staff report, staff recommendation, and submitted findings of fact as presented and subject to resolution of outstanding review items identified by the town engineer in Exhibit 6 of the staff report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Wayne, any further discussion? Wayne, would you please take roll?
Mr. Papa,
Aye.
Mr. Franz,
Aye.
Ms. Walker,
Aye.
Mrs. Grabanowski,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Fedor,
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 7-0. So you have your approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so it is after 10 o'clock, which sets us into a different situation, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Dan?
With overtime?
We have to suspend the rules to hear the remaining items on the docket past 10 o'clock. So we need a motion to suspend the rules.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor signify by aye.
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 By nay. I know you're tired, Mary, but we'll get through this. All right, next on the docket.
I've already taken out my contacts. My bra's next.
Okay.
Too much information.
All right, docket number 2020-37DP, Heritage Trail Park Phase 2, 4050 South, 875 East. Petition for development plan approval to allow for installation of a fencing for a dog park, additional surface parking space, and additional public amenities. Is the petitioner present? If so, raise your hand.
I am going to promote, yes, Mindy Murdoch.
All right. Hello, please proceed.
Mindy Murdoch here, interim superintendent for Zionsville Parks, and presenting to you Heritage Trail Park Phase 2. So currently, Heritage Trail Park Phase 1 was constructed in 2013. Our current Heritage Trail Park has features of a picnic shelter, playground for the 2 to 5 year olds, portion of a parking lot, community gardens, basketball court, bocce court, trails, and all stormwater control and bioretention basins for the completed park. What you have in front of you is actually for the completion of, for phase 2, to complete the original master plan for Heritage Trail Park that was developed through public forums. The phase 2 development will complete the 45 space parking lot with a turnaround. We'll have installation of a playground for 6 to 12-year-olds. We'll complete the trails within the park itself. We'll construct a 3.5 acre dog park, tree-lined croquet lawn, and then the addition of sunshades, additional benches, and picnic tables to finish that park. So the area around 875 and 400 South, we all know, has been growing very rapidly. And in addition, the parks, with the approval of bonds last fall, have been working towards completion of the Big 4 rail trail. So we see that the northern section, which currently ends at Heritage Trail Park, will be continuing up through 400 to where it meets with Whitestown, with the boundary there. So because of this, completing the remainder of this park has become an immediate priority for the park board as well as the Parks Department. The completed park will provide a much needed trailhead parking for an increasingly busy rail trail, as well as additional park amenities for our community. So with your approval, this phase 2 would actually begin construction this fall with completion in 2021. So happy to answer any additional questions.
Okay, thank you. A couple things on this, I think, ministerial. One, was the notice you made by U.S. First class postage? Or did you make notice to the neighbors on this one?
Notice was via first class mail as well as published.
Okay, and then also, Dan, do we need to modify or approve the exception for the submission date or notice date on this one?
Yeah, you can, excuse me, you can do that in one motion, or you could do it, it's a waiver of the filing deadline.
Okay. All right, so what we need is I'll just do it in one motion. We need a waiver of the filing deadline in this matter, and also a waiver of the requirement for first or registered mail instead, which was replaced with first class mail. So is there a motion for those matters?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. By nay. Motion carries 7-0. Okay. At this time, is there any public comment on this matter?
Mr. Friends, there are no hands raised.
All right. Wayne, with that, can we have the staff report?
Thank you. Staff is supportive of the petition as it's been filed. This petition represents an expansion of an established public park that was presented and constructed in 2013. The project that's in front of you, as referenced by Mindy, is an expansion of the facility as it sits. These same improvements were embraced on multiple occasions through the DNR process and other public speaking opportunities. Again, staff is supportive of the petition as it's been filed, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Wayne. Is there any questions, comments from any of the members of the Plan Commission? If there are none, is there a motion?
I move that.
Mary, or sorry, Mr. Fedor.
Yes.
I do want to note for the record, and I don't recall if this was mentioned already, that we did have some correspondence come in and it's been entered into the public file by an individual who did want their thoughts known. We have distributed those to the Plan Commission, and I just wanted to get that into the record.
All right, thank you, Wayne.
So you ready for a motion?
Go ahead.
I move that docket 2020-37-DP to for the installation of fencing for a dog park, additional surface parking spaces, additional public amenities in the R1 Rural Residential Zoning District be approved based on findings and staff reports, staff recommendations, and submitted findings of facts as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Wayne, would you please take roll?
Certainly. Mr. Franz,
Aye.
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
Mrs. Grabanowski,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Josh, Mr. Fedor,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Papa.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0, so this is approved and look forward to the usage of it. Thank you very much. All right, next on the docket, I'm going to take all three of these at once. I'm assuming that they'll have a presentation kind of all tied together. 2020-36 VAC, Holiday Farm, Section 4, 3900 South US 421. Petition to allow for the vacation of all plotted lots, all private easements, and all covenants, conditions, and restrictions within or applicable to the portion of the plotted town of Hamilton, formerly Clarkstown. 20-33 PP, same name, same address. Petition for primary plat approval to provide for 75 lots in the PUD planned unit development. And 2020-34 DP, same name, same address. Petition for development plan approval to provide for the development of a 35.98 acre site into 75 lots in the PUD planned unit development zoning district. Is the petitioner present?
I've promoted Bill Sunling.
Sorry for the late hour, but glad you hung around. You're on. We don't have any sound from you.
Can you guys hear me now?
Now we can.
All right. Good evening. Let me pull up this thing up. Good evening, members of the Plan Commission. My name is Phil Sunling, and I'm with the Hankey Development Group. On the call tonight is Brad Hankey, also representing Hankey Development. We really appreciate your time tonight. I know it's been another long evening, so I'll strive to keep this really brief. We have, in a matter of less than 2 years, sold over 220 lots, which is roughly 40 more than I noted just a month ago when we presented Section 3, 22 of which are in Section 3, 22 of those lots. So needless to say, it's been sales have been incredibly strong here at Holiday Farms. Just a brief update on construction. Section 1 is completed. We're planning to pave Section 2 here in the next couple of weeks. So the infrastructure in that phase is wrapping up, and we'll begin home construction, I would say, by the end of this year in Section 2. Also, we are preparing to start the construction of Section 3 later this fall. The championship golf course will be fully seeded by the end of this week. I think they're on the last hole right now. It might have also been seeded today, I'm not sure. But things are really progressing swiftly on the construction front. And as you all know, we are hosting Homerama right now, which has been very exciting. We've heard nothing but great things from our builders and our guests. And if you haven't had a chance to run through the development in these homes, I'd urge you to do so. They're incredibly beautiful, and it's a really fun event. So, and that brings us to Section 4, which is before you this evening. We are proposing 75 single-family detached lots of various size on just under 36 acres located on the southeast corner of our property, east of Hole 3, west of US 421, and south of our main entry there at Holiday Farms Boulevard, and north of Willow Road. If you recall, during the zoning process, we were initially proposing this ground to be developed into townhomes, but due to the huge demand for single-family detached, we have decided to accommodate this demand, much to the delight of our neighbors there to the east at Brittany Chase. Steve had a conversation with one of their representatives, and they were very, very pleased with that change. So similar to Section 3, like I said, we do have these neighbors to the south. On the southwest, we're bordered by Ravinia. Directly south, there are various lots along Willow Road. And then, like I said, to the east, Brittany Chase. All of these buffering commitments for these neighbors will be met or exceeded. We have committed to preserve all of the existing trees in this buffer on the south side of Section 4, adjoining all of those existing homes. Additionally, we have constructed the berm on the west side of 421 that runs adjacent to Brittany Chase. That's already been constructed. We got that built last year, and I think we planted it just a few weeks ago in preparation for Homerama. So things are starting to really look good out there. We always strive to be good neighbors and certainly plan to do so here in Section 4. We're excited to get this section approved. It's anticipated to generate over $53 million of assessed value, and we're eager to get started on construction. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. One quick question. Did you notice by first class mail?
First class, correct. So we will need that variance as well.
Okay, all right. Is there any comment from the public in this matter?
Mr. Franz, there are no hands raised.
All right, Wayne, may we have staff report, please?
Certainly, I move through all matters here. With the vacation petition, much like the Towers petition prior here, the matter was heard this morning by the town council. There's final action that would need to be taken. So any action tonight by the Plan Commission on the vacation will be subject to town council's final action. Staff is supportive of the vacation petition as it's been filed. Staff is also supportive of the plat and development plan subject to the language in the staff report. That said, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Wayne. At this point in time, is there any questions, comments from any members of the Plan Commission on any of these matters? There appears to be none, and that's probably because we asked you a lot of questions at the very beginning of this process. So not taking it lightly, but just following through on what was completed. Appreciate that. At this point in time, we will need 3 separate motions. I would take the first one on the 2023-6 VAC for the vacation of the platting and all the other things associated with that.
Make that. Move the docket number 2020-36-VAC to allow for the vacation of all platted lots, all private easements, and all covenants, conditions, or restrictions within or applicable to a portion of the platted town of Hamilton, formerly Clarkstown, Boone County, Indiana, identified on Exhibit 4 of the staff report be approved based on the findings in the staff report, staff recommendation, and submitted findings of fact as presented.
Is there a second?
Dave,
Yes.
do we want to waive
the waiver?
first class
Right.
mail?
Yep, that's right. So, all right. So we do have a motion and a second on that one, but let's go ahead and address the waiver. So I need a motion on the waiver for the usage of first class mail instead of registered mail for notice.
We do a so moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor signify by aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. All right. So we have a motion and a second on the recommended motion related to the vacation. Is there any further discussion on this matter? If there is none, Wayne, would you please take roll?
Mrs. Walker.
Aye.
Mrs. Grabanowski.
Aye.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Fedor.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Papa.
Aye.
Mr. France.
Aye. Motion carries. Vacations granted. Next one is 2020-33 PP, the primary plat. Is there a motion for that?
Here, I got it. I move that docket 2020-33-PP petition for primary plat approval to provide for 75 lots in the PUD plan unit development be approved as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Being none, Wayne, would you please take roll?
Ms. Grabanowski,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Fedor,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Papa,
Aye.
Mr. Franz,
Aye.
Ms. Walker.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. The primary plat's approved. And then finally, 2020-34 DP, the petition for the development plan. Is there a motion on that one?
Move that docket 2020-34-DP,
Thank you.
development plan petition to provide for the development of a 35.988 acre site into 75 lots in the PUD Plan Unit Development Zoning District be approved with conditions noted in the staff report and based upon the findings, as presented, inclusive of the requested waivers.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Being none, Wayne, would you please take roll?
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Fedor,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Papa,
Aye.
Mr. Franz,
Aye.
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
Mrs. Grabanowski.
Aye.
That motion also passes 7-0. Once again, thanks for hanging in with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you all. Yep, thanks.
All right, Wayne, in the packet, there was also a reference to the docket 2019-28 DP amendment to the landscape plan. There's materials in that. Do you have any comment on that?
I can very briefly speak to that. The petitioner was originally required to adhere to certain elements in their landscape plan. In the meantime, they purchased the property next door. This request here basically mitigates the requirement and reduces it down accordingly based upon common ownership. Staff is supportive.
All right, appreciate it. Anything else?
Dave, did we waive first class on those last two motions?
Yeah, yeah, because they were all tied together.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. All right. Anything else?
Good night.
Well, thank you for sticking in there.
And staying clothed.
All right, we'll take that as a motion. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Night.